Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another episode of Lack of Focus, episode 38, Beating the Spread. I am your host, Ed Horn, and alongside me tonight, once again, one Mr. Sean Dorsey. Sean, how's it going, my friend?
All right, guys. How you doing?
And, of course, our producer extraordinaire. How many feet of snow do you have in Canada at this juncture? What, 3, 4? Mr. Kris Sheriff.
None. It all melted, and then it's going to snow again tonight, so interesting.
All right, so in tonight's episode, we've kind of got the post-World blues. Worlds is over, obviously. We got some stuff in a really interesting article that FFG released as far as the attendance and ship and upgrade composition. We're going to kind of touch on just briefly. Kris and Sean have got some stuff that they've been doing recently they're going to cover in the flight deck. And the topic for tonight, beating the spread. We're going to be talking about the difference between points bidding and whether or not going for the points bid or spending all your points is more apropos for the better list construction. So that should be interesting. So let's go ahead and get into flight deck. Of course, you guys have been playing an interesting game that we've been savoring little podcast gold bits for all this stuff, you guys. Sean, I'm going to let you lead in on that. What game have you been playing recently?
It's the Marvel, I think it's Champions LCG.
It's produced by Fantasy Flight Games.
Yes, and I bought it kind of on a whim, not fully, but I'm not a huge comic book nerd, like at all. And I really got into the MCU movies late. Like you're looking at, like, maybe Infinity War was probably about the time frame when I started watching the movies.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, yeah. But, I've seen quite a few of the movies, so it gives me an interest. I don't really care about the comic books or the stories. Just like I said, I'm not a huge comic book guy.
That's okay. That's like it's like Game of Thrones people that watch the TV show and never read the books. I'm fine with that as long as you're welcome to the club. I mean, you're in the back of the bus, but it's okay.
Yeah, and I'm,
edit that bit out.
I'm pretty much, content with what I know about the universe, which is limited. But my son and I, we started playing the game today. This is actually very new for me as of today, and we just, use the starter deck. We haven't done, deep diving in or anything yet, but I found that out of all of the LCGs I've ever played in Fantasy Flight, I'll include Destiny, even though it's not an LCG, it's a CCG. This is the best one I've played so far. This one has, number one, so to give you a little bit of background on why I like this, I like the kind of the deck builder games. I like the Dominion type games, things like that. But I also like my favorite card, I think it's my favorite card game, is the Sentinels of the Multiverse. And I don't know if you've ever played it, but it's the off-brand superhero card game, which pretty much this game mimics. It's not the same exactly, but it mimics it pretty well. And it does it in a better way, in a more realistic way, in a way that, you can picture, how the characters and the things that they're doing. So we've played a couple of the starter just so we could get the basics down and everything. And boy, I had a great time. For the first game was an hour and a half, I think, for us, set up, reading through, playing. And then the second game was about 40 minutes with some rules, with back and stuff. But it's really a simple game to play. When you get down to it, it's it's if you've ever played Sentinels of the Multiverse, and liked it, you'll really like this game thematically, and it's better. It's much more refined than Sentinels is.
Now, just for everyone to make aware, like, this isn't not the same as a game that Sean and I also love and play, Magic the Gathering, where you're buying boosters and you never really know what cards you're going to get. You're hoping for good cards, but you get usually like a bunch of commons and uncommons, and maybe the rare is kind of worth it. Living card games, you know what you're getting in every one of those packs. Like, they build. I don't know much about this thing, but I'm assuming they're going to follow the same format that they did with the Game of Thrones one.
It's kind of completely different. So
really,
I'll come in. Yeah.
Oh, fill me in, because that's going to be a different model for their living card games.
Yeah. So if you actually watched the AMA with Andy Navarro, is it the head guy over there now?
Yeah.
He was talking about how they're kind of like learning from the ways they've done stuff in the past and trying to evolve the models to be more responsive to market demands and stuff like that. So for Marvel Champions, you get the core set, and it's a living card game, but it's not in the way you're thinking, Ed, where you're looking at like Game of Thrones, Netrunner, where it was a me v you. This is an us against the game. So it's co-op, like Lord of the Rings and the Arkham Horror. So if anyone has been following me on Instagram, every couple of weeks we get together and play Arkham, and I always post pictures of like what my guys have been doing, what eldritch horrors they've been facing off against and things. And that's been one of my favourite living card games. And then this one's come in, and it's a lot more accessible. Like Sean was saying, the deck building side of this. So you pick a hero. I assume Sean played the same ones that I did in that. Me and my friend Greg, we played. He was Captain Marvel, I was Spider-Man.
Yep.
And that's the intro decks. They come pre-assembled. But your character has a character card, and they have an alter ego side and a superhero side. They've got different abilities. And then they have like a 16 or a 15 or a 16 card deck that's specific cards for them.
Yeah,
it'll always be the same.
Base deck. Yeah, you'll always use those.
And then you pick a color, which relates to being a leader, like a combat-y person, a justice type person. And it's like red, blue, yellow, and green, I think. Sean, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. And basically, you can, at the moment, because the card pool's so small, you can just pull all of those colors, put them with your hero deck, and that's effectively your deck building finished. So it's
interesting.
It's pretty simple, and that's why I like it at the moment.
It feels a little similar. I have the Legendary Encounters from Upper Deck, and we have the Alien one. We play that one. I'm actually
really who knew?
Yeah, who knew that? And we're set to play that one tomorrow, actually, for daddy-daughter. It's my oldest daughter's a huge Alien fan, just like I am. That's our daddy-daughter thing, is we're going to sit down and play that. But it sounds very similar, where you have like...
Keep talking. I'm obviously not going to be listening because my headphone's going to be off, but keep talking.
Sure, of course. But it sounds very similar, where you start off with common cards that are common to that particular class that you're playing in the game, and then during the course of the game, you get other cards that you add to it to complete your deck. Does that sound similar?
It's very similar, yes.
Oh, interesting.
You know, it's there. The difference is you're not adding cards to your deck, so you're not building a deck as you play.
Oh, okay. So you go in with I see where you go. So there is some of like the Magic kind of deck building parts to it.
Correct, but it has a similar feel to a degree to like the Upper Deck games. It's not exactly the same where you're spending to buy. What you're doing is you've already have a pre-assembled deck, and then it's similar to Magic in that you're trying to get cards on the field, use cards, play cards.
I'm sorry, for those of you that are only getting this in the audio format, you're not getting
ASMR Kris banging his Cheyenne dropship model around in its like custom box.
Yeah, where it's got like a rope that actually holds it. That's all. Is that from the that's the AVP stuff that's all like discontinued now?
Yeah, it's like a wooden ammunition crate, and it's got like hay inside it and everything.
That's awesome. We get a talk, by the way, because this is complete aside, and would be like it folks if we didn't. Free League has shipped. You may have already got yours. I know U.S. Customs is a little bit more. Free League has shipped all of the Alien RPG stuff. I've already seen people in the Facebook group already getting theirs. The U.S., of course, we're kind of stuck with a little bit more customs. I've not gotten it, but there are people now that are showing off their stuff. So I know that you had mentioned that you had some models floating around. You and I are going to have an offline conversation about getting some of that stuff over.
Yeah, I'm just checking to see, because our distributor I'm ordering that from is in the US, so he's not got it yet.
Oh, okay. So you're going to be in the same boat that we did. But didn't you do the pre-order like I did?
No, I ordered it for the store and then ordered it from the store.
Okay, gotcha.
So, yeah, I had to go through this. Means I can't get a limited edition one. So.
Yeah, that's what I got. So they're sending all of the pre-orders out first. It will be available to distributors after that in about 3 weeks. So
have it before Christmas.
That was the whole plan. That was the whole plan. So,
Sorry,
anyway,
Sean. Legendary encounters you were talking about and the
legendary
comparison.
encounters. Yep, for the
Yeah,
comparison.
there's a similar feel in that, when you're building your deck, you have a base line of cards. In, the upper deck games, you have a base, the starting hand of usually, 10 cards or 12 cards, and then you're drawing out of that. But
correct.
The where the game will vary from that is that in the upper deck version of the games, you're buying cards from the card pool, where in this, you're basically building your deck and then you're buying your cards from your hand. And you're using cards out of your hand to actually play cards out of your hand. So it's a really cool concept. And then it has the three different methods. What is it? Brawn, brain, and energy.
Yeah.
Are the three, and then a wild card. So when you play things, you can use anything to put anything on the field. But if you play things like with certain, like energy, or especially Captain Marvel in the starter, her big thing was energy, and then using energy to have other special effects off the cards. It's actually, it's one of those games where once you know your cards and once you know your deck, it's going to be awesome. But the best part about it is you're not playing another player. You're playing against the nemesis deck, and some of that can be very brutal. In the starter, it's not. I'm pretty sure the starter's pretty.
Yeah, like Rhino
pretty
is
tame.
the starter villain, and it's effectively just a race. You've got to do like in total about 40 damage to him for 2 players before he either kills both of you or robs the shield headquarter thing. But,
interesting.
Yeah,
it functions kind of like playing Pandemic or a game like that, where the game's playing against you. This deck, you build a deck and it'll have you flip a card over and it'll be some Hydra folks and they'll engage you and you've got to fight them before you can go back to fighting Rhino and stuff like that. So you've always got that aspect of it. So you're trying to balance out thwarting Rhino's scheme, doing damage to Rhino, going back to being your alter ego so you can heal, because they don't attack you when you're Peter Parker. They only attack you when you're Spider-Man.
right.
So.
But then they generate threat. So
yeah.
If you're Peter Parker, you're, however it is, whatever you're playing, if you're the alter ego, then they're putting threat, and that's how they win, is by generating threat.
Yeah.
And damage kills you. And the other thing I like about the game too, which a lot of times in these types of games, there's always that start over rule or something. But if they knock you out, you're done. And which is a very cool concept of this type of game. Which is where Sentinels did too, where if you were dead, you were dead, and it's a really cool game.
The thing that
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I was going to say, just addressing Sean's point there, from playing a lot of Arkham horror as well, I've felt, because we're playing like a 4-player game every time, so it's quite long sessions. And if you end up going out early in that, like I say, there's no way of coming back in, which is one of the downsides of playing Arkham. It's like being the first player out in a game of Monopoly. Oh, cool. Well, I'll go and shoot myself in the face and have more fun than the rest of you. But with this, I feel like if one of you goes down, the other one's not far behind, or it's going to be near the end. So it doesn't feel like, I feel like you'd have to be really unlucky to go down early, and the game still drag on for another 20 minutes after that.
Right.
How many heroes come in the starter set?
5.
Oh, cool. So, because obviously I'm now looking at this going, okay, so there's a starter set, which is the only thing that's currently available right now. It has 5 heroes. They have Captain America and Miss Marvel packs coming in, and then a Green Goblin scenario. I assume that's the villain scenario.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to move on to for talking about it, is that the way it's different to the old living card games. And the model is you now buy a hero pack, which will come with a hero deck, and then a smattering of other cards, and then you can buy a Nemesis deck, which gives you more scenarios to play. So you could never buy another hero deck. Right, I've spoke about it with my friends already, so I don't really know who Miss Marvel is. I've got no attachment to her as a superhero, so I'm not going to pick that deck up. I'm going to buy Captain America and I'll buy Green Goblin. And after I've bought those, it'll either be, oh, this model's nice and I like it, or I'm done. Whereas with Arkham, I've got
cards
models just
that come with this.
Not as in the business model.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I see what you mean.
The beauty of it is it came. There's a positive and a negative. So you paid like $65 for the starter, and you get a lot of stuff with the starter that you only really need the starter to ever play the game. Truthfully, if you never wanted to expand on the game and you like the 5 heroes, 3 nemesis. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So you have 5 heroes, 3 nemesis, and you never wanted to go any further with it, and you enjoyed the game, you're done. You never have to buy another one. But the box has, lacking the spacers, which blows me away. But the way that it's built is that the box is that you can basically everything you buy, you just put in a slot. And then
I have a complaint about this box because Sean's right. The box insert has got like slots cut into it, but it doesn't come with any actual dividers, and the cards don't fit. So I'm like, I was so happy when I saw it. Then I was punching out with cardboard, waiting for the dividers. I was like, what the hell? And then I was like, okay, it's fine. It'll be the standard size, so I can just use none of it. So I had to like cut foam to slide into it. I'm like, oh, you were so close. So close.
Top loaders were the perfect fit.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So that sort of semi reminds me of another card game that I've played. Have you guys ever done the Pathfinder ones?
Yep.
So were those things like you get this gigantic box and you got like these little amount of cards? It's because they're anticipating you buying all of the ones that follow that particular story arc, and they give you all the room to fit into it. That's kind of interesting. But if I'm not, I'm going to have to pull mine off the shelf here to take a look. If I'm not mistaken, they did a pretty good job of pre-spacing that.
Yes. I don't think they're spaced well enough for if you leave a deck. There's 4 slots for a sleeve deck that you could fit in the box. Everything else you'd probably have to have set up as, if you sleeve everything, you'd have to leave them, kind of in their category or whatever.
Yeah, the way I've broken it down is I've got my heroes on one side.
Yeah.
So heroes and nemesis decks on one side and the colours on the other. Because I imagine the colours are going to expand slightly. But yeah, I'm not overly interested in making this into one where I have to sit down and build a deck. So I don't want there to be a pool of like 200 red cards for me to build a deck from. Right. I like that it's so limited at the moment because I was talking about it. If I want to sit and not play the game for an hour and be thinking about the game and building this deck, I'm going to play Arkham. It's more campaign driven. It follows on. You play. It feels more like your character's developing and stuff. Whereas if I want to play a cooperative card game with Jill, I'm probably going to play Champions because she's got no interest in not play. Having to spend an hour not playing the game before she can play the game. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things about those. There is some depth to it. If you want to play, a baseline game, I think you could just transfer all of the non-hero cards out of the 2 starter decks and put them in other decks. Now, they may not line up correctly. You may have some oddities in there, but who cares? You're there to have fun and play. The interesting thing about it to me is this is what I categorize as a true beer and pretzels style game.
100%, yeah.
Which is what I love about it. It's going to be one of those games where you're, sitting down with 4 friends, and it's a 1-player game, which is something I like because once in a while playing a 1-player game in the adversary deck scales, which is nice too. So everything in it scales, which is awesome. So it scales up or down. But you just play a fun game, if you want to spend the time. There are those people out there, I think, that will dig the deck building side of this too, So it'll fit the very casual player who just wants to play a casual game, and it'll fit the player who wants to play, who wants to min-max everything in their hand and go up against and try to beat it, with these great plans and everything else. It's a great beer and pretzels game. It's one of the few that I've found that kind of fits every niche of that beer and pretzel side, where you could sit there literally on a weekend, get 4 guys together, play 3 or 4 games. If everybody has the game, you could bring your own heroes, decks, or whatever. The other cool thing I like about it too is that they've actually built it in a game design space that will allow them to have a Peter Parker and was it Miles Morales?
Yeah.
So you could have 2 Spider-Man that are there, or you could have 2 Captain Marvels or Thors or whatever they put in the game when they have their alter ego.
Yeah.
And it's kick ass. That is a great way to build a game.
Yeah, the game, your hero's identified by the alter ego side, not by the superhero side. So you can have all of the different iterations and stuff. It looks pretty neat, and I'm happy if I don't buy anything after Captain America and Green Goblin. I can play Spider-Man 5 different times and have 5 different experiences because you can play him for different colors and do all of that. So, like Sean says, I'm pretty happy with it. It's good.
Yeah.
See, I like the idea of a complete in the box kind of thing. Like if you didn't want to go any further than the starter deck or the starter kit, you could, and get hours and hours of completely different gameplay. It's not the same thing over and over again. I like that. I like that a lot.
It gives me a feel of kind of how they designed Outer Rim. For Outer Rim, they could come up with 20 expansions and you don't need to buy it because the game can vary enough. You can build it. You can build the semicircle any way you want to be honest with you. You could build it where it's always variance. If you really wanted to, you could make it smaller. If you truly wanted a shorter game, I don't think it'd be as fun. But that game to me is, it's that complete in the box. You're going to get good gameplay out of it, no matter how you look at it. I haven't found many games that are like that. Where when you open the box, you're not, having to buy other things. I think when the Marvel, Crisis Protocol comes out, the starters, you already have it?
Yeah, I'm building and painting it at the moment. We're doing demos on Friday.
Oh.
That releases, the 15th?
Yeah.
So when that comes out, you're kind of going to have a full game in the box there too, with the exception of terrain. Just it comes with limited terrain. You can buy the expansion pack for terrain, but you could also buy Infinity. I think does Infinity terrain?
So it's actually the best way to do it would be buying like O-scale model railway scenery because it's actually in O-scale, which is maybe neat. I don't know. It's not 28mm, it's not 32mm, it's scaled to O-scale.
40,
yeah, but that makes it super available because O-scale is very accessible.
Yeah.
Like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Which is great because there's in Nebraska, in the Midwest, we have a place called Menards. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a lumber store. It's a hardware, but it's like any store now. You can buy everything there. But it's mostly a lumber kind of hardware outdoor store. And the cool thing is that they sell O-scale scenery pre-assembled, pre-painted that you can buy. Now it's $100. If you want a building, you're going to spend $100, but I don't have to assemble it. And I don't have to send it to Kris to paint it for me, and then have him send it back to me, which would cost me that much anyway. It's already just done. And, you can buy, they have a lot of different things. And there's a lot of places that sell stuff like that. Hobbytown USA is a great place in the States. I don't exactly know, what you would have in Canada, but
yeah, there's so many different places. As Ed says, O-scale is really accessible. If you Google, if you're on Amazon and stuff, and looking at model cars and things, the majority is in O-scale. It's one of the cheaper scales to buy different kind of things for. So, I don't mind that it's different. I was really hyped for Crisis Protocol, but now that got this box, I'm building it, and it's like really cool. All the models go together really well. The sculpts are really cool. The game seems really interesting. But I've got this little niggling thing at the back of my head where it's like, it's a trap. Well, you're saying it's like a complete inbox experience. I think it is, in the fact that you have enough stuff to build a full team in the box. But it's going to be that first edition X-Wing kind of vibe where this pack comes out and it gives you one little extra thing cool in addition to the hero. So you're like, oh, I'll just get that. I'll just get that. And yeah, I can see this spiraling horribly for me. So maybe I might be... I'm going to try to be really disciplined with this one. So we'll see.
Well, the one thing is, and when I say out of the box, I'm talking about the casual play.
Yeah.
Not the competitive, this is one. It's like I talked to my son about it. I'm not going to play in any tournaments. I think I'm kind of done with that phase for now because I can't stand long enough and I can't sit well enough, and it's very hard to play games for me at this point where without special concessions being made, and I'm not that type of person. The store would have to kind of go through some hoops to try to get me in a play space that I could do this, and I don't think that that's realistic for any store. But it's like a game, I could go to a game store, take my guys with me, and just sit down and have a casual game where it was like X-Wing in the beginning, where you would sit there and have an hour and a half conversation with a game going on in the middle.
Yeah.
That's what this game seems like it's going to be for me. Now, to me, you're also going to have those dedicated decks that, you can only play with them if your stuff is painted, and okay, that's great, but, not everybody's skilled painter and not everybody really cares about that. But I think that, it's going to be a game out of the box. It's going to be for the casual player, a decent experience, for those players, and I'm looking forward to that. That's the thing I'm looking forward to. Everything I've watched, and I'll be honest with you, any game where I can throw a car at somebody is a cool game. It's in any game you can put the whole.
Luckily, the starter box comes with 2 cars, so
exactly, yeah. And I think doesn't the terrain pack come with one?
I've not actually looked at the contents for a terrain pack yet, but yeah. It comes with the Daily Bugle newsstand, a trash can, 2 cars, 2 dumpsters, 2 lampposts, and 2 crosswalks. So
yeah,
it's good.
All things I can throw at you.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the most important piece to it. Is if I can pick it up and throw it, that makes it a decent game.
That's awesome. So I guess both of you have obviously played it, you've enjoyed it. None of that had anything to do with X-Wing. Did anyone get any X-Wing in it at all? Because I know this is going to be surprise. I did not.
I did play some X-Wing. I don't know. I can talk about it now. It kind of ties into our main topics. All of the lists that I played, I actually purposely made the effort to spend 200 points.
Ooh.
So
we'll save the reasoning for the main topic, but we can go into that.
Yeah, so I played 3 different games with 3 different lists against 3 different opponents. Just wanted to try different stuff. So my first game I ran Darth Maul with Chancellor Palpatine, Hate, and then I had General Grievous with the title and something else. I could bring the list up, I suppose. And Shiratek with Ensnare. And
interesting.
Yeah. So it was an I5 and 2 I4s, which again, completely not the kind of squad I would normally fly. But I wanted to just try something different. Spent all of the points, and it was really good fun. I liked it. No, not that one. Where have you gone? Something different, that's what it's called. That's why I couldn't find it.
You legitimately called it something different.
Yeah. So, Elusive and Soulless 1 for Grievous. Shiratek has got Intimidation and Ensnare. And then Darth Maul's got Palpatine, Dark One Probe Droids and Hate. And so
you get the probe droids. How'd you forget that? That's so cool.
yeah, and it kind of worked, but kind of didn't. I need to, obviously, because I had points left over, and I'm like, look, I'm flying a 5 and 2 4s. I don't need the bid. Like, my 5's Darth Maul without the title, so I can't reposition him anyway, really. I'm not dodging any arcs, so it's irrelevant. I'd rather move first if I have to, so I can get my tokens and stuff. So I kind of just threw Elusive, Intimidate, and Probe Droids on there. I think there's better combinations. I would probably put Intimidate onto Grievous and Elusive onto Shuratech and just swap those two around. But yeah, I won. It was fine. Kind of slow roll Maul around and just. That's just funny. Like, I'm going to shoot Darth Maul. I played someone with it was running 2 Jedi with Foresight. It's like, I am going to use Foresight against Darth Maul. I was like, good. You attacked me. Would you like to be stressed now? Because you are. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't dial in a blue move because I wasn't stressed when I set my dial. And so then it's like, oh, I can't really keep foresighting Darth Maul, can I? You can. You just have to accept that I'm going to be giving you stress.
Enjoy.
Yeah. So I think I double stressed Obi-Wan, and then it's like, oh, well, he's not going anywhere for a while. I don't need to worry about him. He's not turning around and getting back in the fight. So fun. And it was that kind of control thing from Maul, especially being able to, like, I think I got the bump in with. So the way I tried to do it was have everyone jammed in the middle and try and block stuff up in front of Maul. Then you get your range 1 shot with him. You take the tank lock action and just spend all 4 of his force points. It's fine because they shoot you and you get them back with hate. So it's all gravy. And if you hit. Cool, you then shoot somebody else. You spend 2 force and do a second attack on somebody else. If you don't, you get to shoot the guy again. So I think I shot Obi-Wan or something and got like 1 hit. It's like, well, I'm not going to spend my target lock or any force. You can roll your dice for a hit. So he evaded it, so I shot him again. And it's like, yeah, good, let the hate flow. But yeah, that was good. I think I lost Maul. I completely misplayed Grievous, and I said as I was deploying, because I put Shuratech on a flank and Grievous in the middle. I was like, these should probably be the other way around, so that I can take advantage of like being out of arc and flanking with Grievous. But I basically managed to hunt down Obi-Wan and Mace Windu with Shuratech. Just like, if I go here, he either bumps me or I can ensnare him. And if I ensnare him, he's going to die. So it was good. It was good fun. But yes, that was interesting. A few changes I would make. Then the other one, what was the other? So I did play. I had to do it because my friend Clay and Patrick were at Worlds, and they brought me back a Plo Koon paint job, Aether Sprite.
Oh, that's awesome!
So
sweet.
I have to paint all of Clay's Star Wars Legion stuff, which I will happily exchange my labor.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that was pretty cool. So I ran Obi-Wan, Rick Olay, and Plo Koon as 3 5s. And again, I spent all 200 points. I didn't bother with any bid at all. And I had Obi-Wan with R2 Astromech and Delta 7 and Sense. Plo with Heightened Perception, Delta 7 and R2. And then Rick with Lone Wolf and R2. Just thinking that any one of those can be an endgame ship. They've all got some regen. Sense basically means I shouldn't need the bid anyway, even if it's like against 5s and 6s. I can kind of play around with that. Heightened Perception can let me maybe initiative kill someone after I've done damage to them. And the only change I'd make to this list would be I would swap around heightened perception and sense, so that Plo would get sense and Obi-Wan would get heightened perception. Because I honestly thought that I'd be triggering Obi-Wan's ability a lot, where you spend a force and they can refocus every time you spend a token. But I wasn't getting enough shots off where I was having there wasn't any times where I didn't trigger Obi-Wan's ability once, effectively. So Obi-Wan always had a load of force, and then Plo never had any, because Plo's only got 2 force anyway. So other than that first time you use sense when you're moving into the engagement, where you've got to do it beyond range 1, there's normally a target for sense in range 1 after a fight started. So I think that would be a better way to do it. So Plo doesn't use force but gets sense off. You block him with one of your ships, can normally block the position. But I played against Vader, Fel, and Duchess, and he had a bid. I didn't. So all 3 of his aces were moving after mine, and I managed to win without losing a ship.
Ooh, that's impressive.
So Obi-Wan went down to 1 health with structural damage, so it was down to 1 agility. But he had a shot with Duchess, and I was like, please be my Duchess. And he did it. He rolled his 4 dice and then got 1 crit. And I rolled my 1 dice and got an evade. I was like, yes, he lives. And then Obi-Wan, 5 forwards, keeps his stress, regens his last shield back. So he's now on 2 hull and, a hull and a shield, and kind of squeezed through and got away with it. Obi-Wan should have been dead. But I did stuff like I sensed Vader, figured out where it was going to be. Then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to put Obi-Wan so that he will bump Obi-Wan, but I'm going to put Plo in front of Obi-Wan so that when he bumps Obi-Wan, he has to go back in front of Plo. So I'd flew in, I regened with Obi-Wan and focused. Then Plo sucked Obi-Wan's weapon disarm token off him, so he could still shoot. So Vader bumps into Obi-Wan, gets bounced back onto Plo, and now I have a range 1 shot on an actionless Vader. And it's like, oh yeah, you can take that orange weapon disable token. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, sure you can.
So, yeah. So Plo doesn't have a shot. He can take so Plo is holding 2 disarm tokens. Yeah, I'm not shooting, but it doesn't matter because they both go away in the end step. So yeah, effectively, I suppose this story revolves around Kris played a dirty rebel regen list, but I felt like it was good because I flew all 5s and didn't take a bid at all, and it was against the perfect list to fly against it, and Vader, Fel, and Duchess all moving after me. But I felt it was really good. I really enjoyed it, actually. Rick didn't take any damage. He was the one that got ignored, so I just kept zooming him as fast as I could out of the combat. Never K-turn, just take 2 turns to come around. And that was good. And then the last one was a little bit more fun. So this list is called Party Buzz and Friends.
You got my hopes up.
Yeah. I flew a ship that I'd never even flown in 1st edition. So do you want to see if you can guess what ship it was?
YV666.
So I've flown the 666 in first. So there's Fenro, a Trandoshan slaver, and then 1 other ship. But I'd never flown. I didn't even own it in 1st edition.
Jumpmaster.
Oh, the Kimagilla.
Ooh, you flew a Kimagilla.
Yeah. So I did blatantly steal the idea from one of the guys who was in the top 16, and he was running Tirani Kaluda, which is that if they're in your bullseye, after attack's done, they either suffer damage or discard a green token. And then I put Snapshot on it. So if they move within range 2 in your bullseye, you snapshot them. It doesn't matter if you hit or not, they're taking a damage because they don't have a green token yet. Which didn't trigger at all, obviously. But
it would have been cool if it did.
Yeah. And this game I played against Mark. He was running, also running a YV666. He was running Morello Eval and a loaded up Fat Gurry. So he flew Morello off the table turn 1 so we could come back on later.
Such a cool tactic.
But I said to it was so obvious because he deployed in the corner. Like, well, you're going to go off that side. So I deployed and just flew at my corner. So he flew back on. It's like, oh, all my ships are waiting for you. So I K-turned my Camagilla and my YV came in. It's like, oh, look, there's a party bus for me to shoot at. So, yeah. I suppose I should give my full list.
Can I pause you real quick on that one? So would you... the most time I see people do it, and I have seen it done a couple times, actually on the table, it's that same thing. They telegraph the move on the first turn, and you're like, I know where this is going to go. To me, that's more of a mid-game move.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to do it, you don't start it off because you're telegraphing it, but if you pull that off in the mid-game, like, oh, wait a minute, now that's totally different.
Yeah, like, I would have just flown straight at me, and like Jace did, and then the turn where... Because it can't K-turn. So you fly off the turn that you would normally K-turn. So yeah, you don't get... you miss out on a round of shooting, but you also don't have stress. So you come...
And you're not getting shot at.
Yeah, you come back
That's
on.
super important.
Yeah. And like, you can place it at range 1 of that edge, so you could come back on in front of them again. So...
Absolutely.
Yeah, you get to see how the table evolves and stuff. So I do like Morello, but it's just too expensive. So like my Trando Slaver is 69 points. It's 000 and BT1, and then Lando Calrissian, which is the same kind of thing. When I was running that stupid hand list that tried to roll all of the dice in Scum, where it's like, would you like a stress or give me a calculate? If they take the stress, that turns on BT1. If they give me a calculate, that calculate token turns on Lando, so I can spend that green token and have his focus. Or the other thing that I thought, well, Lando's really neat on this one, because it's initiative 2, it's normally shooting towards the end of the round. So you reinforce the front, and then you can spend your green reinforce token when you shoot, because it's a green token, and Lando lets you reroll up to 2 dice. So I just fly at people, and then I'm going to reinforce the front. You shoot me. Oh, good. I don't take a lot of damage, and I shoot you, and I've got mods. So,
have fun.
Yeah. Fenro had Fearless on him, 71 points, and then Tarani had Snapshot and Shield Upgrade, so it took him to around 10 hit points, and yeah. And again, Mark didn't kill a ship, but Mark doesn't normally fly a 2-ship build, so he was just messing around with Morello. It's normally Gurry and some smaller support ships that he kind of uses to force bumps or have ion cannons on and stuff like that. But I just bluffed that I was going to go for his Trando, got damage on Gurry, then just swapped. I think to try and get past my Slaver, he ended up flying and just clipped a rock, and that was a turn I had the potential to boost Fenro into range 1 of him. So I did, because he can't shoot me, and Fearless activates, and I pumped in. So Fenro got 5 hits. So that took out all of his shields and put damage cards on him. Then Tarani got a crit, which was structural damage. And then the Trando was at range 1. So then the Trando shot was like, if I'm rolling 4 dice, if I get 2 hits, I think, you die because you don't roll any agility. So I 100 to 0, and he took damage from a rock. So he 100 to 0'd Morello in a turn. And I was like, yep, that's game over now because I've got all 4 ships and you've got a damaged Gurry. So I felt really good about that one because my stupid list with a YV666 was better than Mark's stupid list with a YV666.
Good.
Yeah. So there you go. I played 3 games of X-Wing.
I'm gonna have to fix it. You had messaged me about doing a game of Vassal, and of course, unfortunately, I had family things going on, didn't have the opportunity to be able to do it. I'm going to fix that. I keep saying that, and I swear it's gonna happen.
Well, I've
Every
got
time
a
I
lot
do, I
more
have to keep
free
updating
time.
Vassal too. So
I've got a lot more free time now that Joel's parents are here for 3 months. So I'll be I'll make the effort to be more available for you.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Sean, I don't want to speak for you, but I can't imagine you got any X-Wing in, did you?
No. Actually, I probably touched more on Armada than I did X-Wing this week.
Ooh, what'd you do with Armada?
Well, so I had a bunch of stuff before, but I had stopped at about maybe like wave 3 or something, and about a month and a half ago.
Did they have the Star Destroyer by then?
No. It was. I stopped at like when the Gladiator came out.
Okay.
It was a while ago. And a friend of mine was selling his entire collection for a very good price, and the value of the collection well exceeded probably by about $700 what I paid for it. So I ended up with
wow.
I ended up with all the Rebel ships, which I didn't have. 2 Star Destroyers.
Such a beautiful model. I love that model.
Yeah, and the only thing it was missing, I was supposed to get the Chimera with it, but it wasn't in there. I don't really care. It was kind of half organized, half jumbled mess, and then I got the Super Star Destroyer for $100, so I got that for half price, which was, you can't beat that at all. That thing is a beautiful model. But anyway, so
I've not seen it in person yet. I'm gonna have to see if I can see one. I've seen all the shots of it. I've seen people put it on the table and videos and stuff, but I've not seen it in person. I really would do want to see that one.
Yeah, we looked at it. My son and I looked at it the other night, and it's well worth it's well worth the money even if you just want to put it on the shelf. It's just beautiful. But the thing about it is, so between my original set, I had 2 core sets, and then I had a third core set that I had never utilized. I don't even remember where I got it, but it had been sitting on the top of my bookshelf where I have all my large box games and stuff. And my son came over and he's like, "I need to start going through all the Armada stuff." I'm like, "Why?" "Well, my roommate, just bought a core set and some ships, and he wants to start playing it. He likes the capital ships." And I'm like, "All right, well, first things first, get up there and get down the core set. He can have this core set, gets it out of my house, and somebody else is utilizing it and stuff, and so he they have a core set, and my son came over yesterday and was building a list and stuff, and it was fun because I got in, and actually started looking at the stuff, which I just haven't had the energy or feel or drive to do it, and give me an excuse. And I had, when I was at Nova in 16 or 17, whichever year it was, I had bought one of the Alpha gaming tables. It's the portable 6 by 3.5 foot gaming tables. So I had given that to my son, for his game nights and stuff with his friends. And he's like, "We need to buy a table now." And I'm like, "No, you don't. You have, this $300 table sitting in your place, utilize that." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." And so him and his roommate are going to start playing it, which will probably bring other people in, which means the stuff will get, utilized and played with, which is awesome. But yeah,
that's the best part.
Yeah, but the cool thing was it was kind of out of the blue where this, interest in that game is kind of peaking again. I won't be able to play that for a while either, just because it's way too big for me to play. The table wise and everything else, but at least my son's playing it, and it's kind of gotten the juices up to build lists and things like that. Because I'm a huge fan of the Rebels, and in both X-Wing and that game, and so I just my $250 investment plus another $100 investment, so $350 investment, just ballooned because it's going to get utilized, and it's well worth the while. And one thing about this set too is and I don't know because I haven't looked at it, but I'm not sure how many sets. I think there's like 6 sets of the ships that had the fire spray in it. So like I have like
those are like the hero packs, like where they have the because you gotta run 5 Falcons, or that one had like all the like you said, the fire sprays in it. But yeah, you get like one of each of those. I remember those.
Yeah, and the guy had bought it for like five or six of those packs. So I have fighters, I have everything galore to, you could build like 8 lists on each side with this, the amount of stuff that I have. It's so much stuff, but I was just happy because we were sitting down going through it, and I started putting cards in binders and things like that, because I hadn't done that yet. And so now I'm kind of excited about that, but I need my back to get better, or at least to get to a place where I can do it, and I'm nowhere near that right now. But it was pretty cool though. No X-wing, but the sister game or whatever you want to call it. I definitely.
It's still chugging along. It's still there.
Yeah, yeah. It's a slow but sure thing. So now that means I'm playing Imperial Assault periodically with my son. We're playing Champions. So the Marvel Crisis Protocol, probably Armada in the future. We'll probably go down to a 3x3 board in Armada if we play it, and so it'll be very close quarters. But yeah, a lot more gaming than I thought. But most of it's just right now computer gaming because I can't do a whole heck of a lot.
Yep, no, we hear you. I totally understand that. All right, so I do have one little piece of news I want to cover over. This is sort of the post-world blues. FFG did this really cool thing. It's something they've not done in years past, where they did a complete breakdown of the not only the attendance on where everyone came from, but they named some of the top ships and some of the top upgrades. I do want to point out real quick, this is the only thing that I'm going to complain about, is in the old days, in black and white TV and covered wagons, when we had the series that they set up where you had store championships and then you had, regionals, nationals, and then worlds. This would be the time you'd be gearing up for store championship season, because it's right after Worlds. All the Worlds lists are out there, and those would be the lists you'd be playing in the store championship season, and they'd be starting up right now. You'd already have 5 or 8 stores picked out, like we're going to go to that store championship and that store championship, and that's not here. And I wish it were, because I miss that, because that was half the fun for me back in those days of going down that list of, all right, how many stores are within driving distance so we can make it to and be able to drive back that same day if it goes late. So I don't even know what the next events are on the competitive circuit at this juncture. Like, where do they go from here?
And I don't know actually in that, because originally it was supposed to be a second regional season, I think, or that level of play. But I don't know if they changed that or not. I think we're at what's the tier up from the regional? It's like the super regional thing.
The primes, I think. They've changed all the names again, so I've got no idea where we stand with the current. Until we get the next batch of kits, but Sentry Box wasn't eligible for the next batch because we did the first one. So I in Calgary, there's no high-level competitive X-Wing events until 2020 now. So,
see, and that's what's weird to me is that. So, like every time they post it, I go and I look and see who got what. And I saw Sentry Box got a prime. It looked like, which makes me really want to move to Calgary. Just because. It's either that or British Columbia. It's one of the two. But I don't quite understand it. And I understand that they're still growing. They're kind of rearranging things from the old system to the new system, and Fantasy Flight to Asmodee and all that. So they're still trying to get it together. But what I don't get is that if you're going to offer 2 regional seasons, leave it open to everybody. Because there are areas that are not going to be like you said.
So
in your area, there isn't going to be anything.
I can't talk too out of school about it, but I'm working on it. I'm in contact with FFG, to see if there's a potential for a rules change or exceptions to be made. Because even if they message a sentry box last minute, like literally they said, "Oh, you can run a prime in December if you like," we'd do it.
Right.
But
I mean, but one thing I learned about Fantasy Flight, and is that in the old system, when you had 24 regionals total, they would skip major markets, and in like major markets. The East Coast was the one that was bastardized for the West Coast. In the Midwest, it was, do you get the one in Pittsburgh?
I like that one. That was right in my backyard. I love that one.
But then you wouldn't get anything down the coast. Your next one was like Cleveland or Cincinnati or wherever. I don't remember.
Nova always got one.
I know. Yeah. I know I used to have to take it really seriously of putting together our application because we knew what it meant and that we needed to make sure it was and I put the work in. You're taking photographs of all of your events and doing it was it's all online, but it's like a 3-page document of like essay question answers. That's the package I put in, and I got a regional every time. So. I'm sure there were stores who were disappointed, but equally I'm sure there were stores who didn't actually put that level of work in, and that kind of is on them at times. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, easily. And that's the thing. It's before when 2014, 2015, that time frame. I know for a fact, and I know this to be true, that if you put my name into that organizer slot, or he said that it was going to be me organizing it, I can almost guarantee you that we got one just because of the quality of tournament, and then you drew people from a large area. And, that was back when, regionals, you had some regionals that were 100 plus, but very few of them were 100 plus, they'd be in that 70 to 80 range. But you didn't have to do what you have to do today, Kris. It was a 1-page document where it was how many people can you fit in your, venue? Can you do a 2-day tournament? Who's running it? Is there, places close by for food, stuff like, the very basic stuff. They didn't care about what the venue you were actually playing in or how many you could actually fit in that venue. They just cared that you had a venue, you had people that were dedicated, and those types of things. And but today, I know that it's a lot more difficult to get, and especially when you're talking about the primes, they're even more difficult to get than just your basic whatever.
Well, what are they playing for? So I guess that's kind of the part that kind of confuses me. And again, it's how this competitive season works out. Worlds is over. So are they playing?
Entry to 2020. So if you won a prime in, I think it was from September, you could count that towards 2020 Worlds as long as you weren't attending 2019.
Right.
So you couldn't double stack your invite. But because it was so close, it deemed that basically it effectively worked out that Wave 2 of the primes for 2019 could count towards either. Obviously, if your prime is after Worlds, it has to go towards 2020.
So here's a question I have, because I started looking at it, and then I just started getting mixed information that I didn't understand, and I just decided screw it. When they did Worlds this year, how many guaranteed slots were there? Like people that had won a regional or
I don't know the exact numbers, but it would be everyone who top 8s a system open and everyone who wins a prime, and the system open ones don't tier down, but primes did.
Okay.
So if you think that there was so I believe, and again I may be wrong in this, that day 2 of Worlds could have been a 300-player tournament.
Okay, so this is what my question is. Well, my question, because I know where you're going, Kris, and I have to ask this question. But so they had a tournament there. What was it? The Last Chance tournament.
Last chance qualifier, yeah.
How many people played in
I'm going rough numbers. So I can't remember exactly unless it's in the article, which I'll quickly scroll, but I don't think it is. Yeah,
I didn't see the numbers.
So I believe it was nearly 200 people played in the Last Chance qualifier.
Okay, and how many people made day 2?
I believe it was like 120-ish.
All right, so let's do some bad math here, but you had how many people from the Last Chance qualifier made it into the day 1?
Oh, okay. So the way it worked is I think roughly 128 people from Last Chance qualifier got entries into Worlds proper, and odd numbers went into one day in Flight A, and then even numbers went to Flight B, for example. Right. And then from those, they took 5 and 1s, or 5 and 2s made day 2, or 5 and 1. Maybe it was 5 and 1s. And then if you went 6-0, you got a bye in day 2 for round 1.
So here's the point I'm making here.
Yeah.
So you had a Last Chance qualifying tournament that had 200 some players.
Yeah.
With about 120 qualifying for World. Is that a roughly an accurate or close to accurate statement?
It's ballpark.
So the way the Last Chance qualifier was structured was that it was to guarantee that both flights for both flights, day 1A and day 1B for Worlds, were both full tournaments.
So here's the question I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
Why didn't they just do it like they've done it in the past and fill 1A and 1B? Say you have 200 slots available for 1A, 200 slots available for 1B, because you had about 400 players. It says here 416 unique players.
That doesn't include Last Chance qualifier players. That only includes Worlds proper.
So that was just World. So now you're looking at, but still, if you look at,
so you can,
let's just add another 100 to that number ish. So you had 500. Let's just say 550 unique players with 416 making Worlds. Why don't you just do it the way you've done it and just?
The short answer to that question, Sean, is: did anybody have any complaints about being in queue to get Worlds tickets this year?
I don't think so.
Right. So you had to have won your way in, or made the flight out there and try to win your way in on the Last Chance.
Yeah.
That's the reason why they did the way they did it.
I like it this way, Sean, purely because everyone who played. So there's two ways of looking at it, but I'll do the way I like it first.
The way it should be.
Yeah, no, not should. I
know, I'm teasing.
I feel like everyone who played in Worlds proper earned a slot. How much the person who made it in at like 3-3 from a Last Chance qualifier with the best MLV earned that slot, it is irrelevant. They placed above other people on the day and earned their invite to Worlds.
Right.
And then after that, the tournament goes on, and whatever happens, happens.
Right.
And the other way to look at it is Worlds is actually Last Chance qualifier is day 1 of Worlds. Then you make the cut from that.
Right.
And everyone who earned a slot just got a buy from a Last Chance qualifier.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I would be curious to see how many people who made it into the last day. What was the last day? The top 64?
No, I worked out. That's what I was doing. Quick math while Sean was talking. If you take the number of different faction lists, that adds up to 98. So when you consider some of those would have been undefeated players who had buys for the first round of elimination, but it's a single elimination bracket of 98 players, effectively. So,
which I didn't hear anybody complaining about. That It was single elimination.
No, because at that point, that's where I think that they did everything right as far as that was concerned. Because after that, it's win or go home. Right. What the thought process I was going on was I'd be curious to see how many people who made that final day's cut earned their way in from the last chance.
So the best thing to do for this kind of analysis, I believe, would be to listen to the Carolina Crates, because they did a lot of this kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. I will have to go out.
You have to suffer through them playing video games and not talking about X-Wing for 50% of the podcast.
I can't imagine anyone opening the first 30 minutes of their podcast talking about a card game that had nothing to do. Oh, wait, we just did that.
Try 58 minutes, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Because we enjoyed ourselves, and hopefully some people are still here. I did actually make a note on my little notepad of timestamps for this episode. So I should probably be doing that if we want to be a good podcast anyway.
Yeah.
But hey-ho.
But anyway, so I guess that what that drove into, that was the thought process I was trying to go with, was so now that Worlds is done, I get that they have these primer events that are coming up, and those are all playing for World spots, but it just feels disjointed to me.
So remember, Sunday at Worlds was the first chance qualifier to get your ticket to 2020 Worlds. So people have already qualified. There's already events going. So I'm not going to lie and say that I don't think that this is messed up, because I have no idea. I run a lot of the events in Calgary, and I have no idea what's going on. Until FFG sends me the next batch of stuff, I honestly don't know. But I don't really worry about it at the moment, because Epic came out this weekend, and we had 16 people turn up for a casual night. They had a 2-player 1,000 points aside battle going on, in the back room, and then I had to keep the lower mezzanine open longer, because normally the X-Wing group got their own key to a back room so I can play after hours, but there were too many people, so I just stayed and played a couple of games and did all of that stuff, and it was one of the busiest nights we've had in a long time. So
that's good.
Oh, you're saying that Epic brings in the people. That's what you're saying. Everyone get to play with their big toys finally.
But no, it was people. It was a lot of standard games and stuff like that.
Really?
But it was people. Worlds is finished, and X-Wing. People are still wanting to play. Yeah, so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. It's not saying that there isn't going to be people that want to play. It's just that weird little awkward thing of I'm really accustomed to the idea of okay, so now we're into a new season. Think of it I don't know. You're in Canada. It's a hockey season, so now the preseason's kind of.
Hockey, these weird games. I don't know.
Does Premier League do preseason games before you warm up to the next season?
But it's it's a 60-minute game split into 3 thirds, so that should be still 20-minute thirds. Maybe give them a break in between each third for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need a break before and at the end. So maybe you're playing for 80 minutes. How does it take me 3 hours to watch a game of hockey, man? Oh man! Did you see this guy's time on ice? He played for 13 minutes. Is that in one? No, in the whole game. Oh, I don't care. Whatever. Yeah.
I can start explaining the intricacies of shift changes in hockey if you want. As far as if you're the first team or the fourth team,
and it's not hockey. That's ice hockey. You can play field hockey when it's icy. You can't play ice hockey when in a field, can you? So hockey is field hockey. Ice. If you need skates and an ice rink, it's ice hockey.
All right, it is
irrefutable logic.
It is factually correct. Colloquially, I don't think people are going to pick up on that.
No, I'm probably going to get. I'm actively looking around the basement now in case these Canadian ninjas are trying to come through and I don't think they'd shank me. They'd probably trample me to death with a moose or something. I don't know.
Either that, or they're going to tattoo Connor McDavid's name to your butt cheek and then leave.
They will polite you to death, is what they will do.
More references that mean nothing to me, Ed. Good.
Someone else, there's a hockey fan who is going to get that joke and laugh. I'm just saying. I recognize that you don't get it. Somebody else will.
While we were talking about Canada, do either of you guys have Hulu?
No.
No, I dropped Hulu. We the kids weren't watching it, so we just. But I've had it in the past. How's that sound?
Okay. Well, if you ever pick it up again, there's a show called Letterkenny on Hulu. It's about small town Canada. And it's one of the funniest shows I've seen. And there's a lot of hockey references. The guy that created it, who's an actor, is a big hockey, is a good hockey fan. It's a very funny show if you ever want to watch something that's Canadian that fits the
stereotypical Canadian.
The small town Canadian is what it is. And if you like colorful metaphors, you'll really, really enjoy this show.
Well, that's totally me. All right, this is way off the topic. Yeah. It's great conversation.
25 countries represented.
That's where I was going. So we wanted to talk about they did this cool graphic. One of the things I do as a job, I do a lot of visualizations with data. And I really like the way that they presented this. 25 countries represented outside the U.S., interestingly enough, even though it's in Minnesota, right across the border from Canada, the UK was more highly represented than Canada was.
And then Canada was second. Yeah, I win again.
At 34. Then you start getting to like Australia, Spain, Germany. Of course, we get all the way down to the list of all the ones that are below 3%. I see Kuwait and I go, Mashari.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
He represents. I don't know if he came with a group or not, but it's Mashari. Mashari came from Kuwait, but it was just fantastic to see that. But one of the other things I wanted to take note on this was the 22,667 total hours viewed. Now, I'm curious if they're including in that number.
I don't know that you want to go into like Twitch viewing numbers because like there's so many ways to just lie. Yeah. I'm not saying that FFG are acting in bad faith here, but Twitch viewing figures are designed so that you can lie to companies and say, look how popular these things are. Would you like to invest in esports? This isn't a scam. Nobody. Overwatch League, would you like to give me $15 million for a slot? And then like, you'll definitely get a return on investment. Your return will be losing that investment, but
it's a return.
When you look at it in an hour and a half game at if you have 100 viewers, hour and a half, that's 900 minutes. 900 minutes. That you can break it down any way you want. If you look at every round that they showed, everything with the amount of people that watched it. Kris is absolutely correct. That figure is very, very malleable.
Yeah.
Point being, though, I want to still tip my hat to Dion, and I do want to. FFG has been doing this. The first one that they broadcast was Paul's first win. So that would have been what 2013. So to me, it's the nerd Super Bowl kind of stuff. Like if you're really into X-Wing and you can't make it, what fantastic coverage that they have done.
Watched it. I've tuned in live.
Games. Dion's been releasing videos all the last couple of weeks of all. Like now he's into day one, game 5, and I'm watching those because they did such a good job, especially with the way that he's swapping back between the games. So cool.
Yeah. It did I think we praised him on the last one, but I don't think you can praise that enough. It did supremely competent job. And
yes, absolutely.
Full props to Gold Squadron. They are awesome.
So anyway, to get into some of the more interesting statistics on this one, the First Order, 6%, lowest of all factions represented.
Just because I said they were going to win, I took the uphill battle. I mean, you've got to be a real loser to pick the favorite, Ed.
I didn't know they were going to be the favorite. I'm so far away from the competitive meta on this one. I took it because they're my favorite faction, period. Like, I had no bearing whatsoever, but they were 25%. So on the opposite end of it, 25% for the Imperials. The next highest one was the Did it end up going Galactic Empire, or what's next?
Galactic Republic.
Galactic Republic was next at 20%. Then, of course, you've got all the way down at the 14 mark. We've got the Rebel Alliance. Yeah, it was interesting to see some of the breakdown. 12% for Scum and Villainy. It's bizarre to me that they've got the Rebel symbol for both the Republic and.
It's because it's uncolored.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If there were colors, it'd be so much easier to see. Yeah. Overall, day 2, only 5 first order. 25 on the first one, Chris.
So that's a 20% conversion rate, man. That seems pretty good.
Seems pretty good.
Compare that to your Empire. They got 19 points something.
Yeah, exactly.
So the first order converted at the same rate as the Empire. Until day 2.
Until day 2. Scum and Villainy had a huge drop off, 50 to 12 from day 1 to day 2. Interesting. So they went into the most paid pilots. Something I thought was really interesting. The number one, and this shouldn't surprise anyone, the number one most paid pilot was the Trade Federation drones because of all the people that are running the drone swarms. Totally makes sense. Then you've got the Inquisitor, then you've got Obi-Wan, then you've got Gold Squadron troopers. And then Vader being in the top 5. You've got 2 generic ships. I totally get one, but like 2 generic ships on the most paid pilots.
So a couple of the builds generally have got 2 Gold Squadron troopers in there with them. So it's either like a couple of Jedi and 2 Gold Squadron, or like 2 Jedi and Arc and Gold Squadrons. So they kind of are just good filler for like 2 Gold Squadron pilots is 50 points in Republic.
Yeah.
So it's a good foundation to any Republic list.
What I'm kind of driving at, though, is like, while an Aces list did win,
generics carried a lot of weight.
Exactly where I'm going with it. Because we went through different phases, and I know we keep calling back to first edition, but we went through different phases of first edition for a really, really long time. Generics are the way to go. Why would you pay the extra points for the high-end, super expensive named pilots when I can do 3 other ships and blow your named pilot off the board before anything happens? But
But that was actually faction driven back then too, because
this is true.
If you were playing Rebels, you had to play named or play some type of swarm where you're playing 4 or 5 pilots kill 2 ships. That was just it. Or you're playing Imperials where you have 1 named ship and then everything else is generic, unless you're playing. The Suture fell kind of, that wave.
Fell Vader Palpatine. Love that list.
That when Fell became a thing, then that brought out the 3 unique ships. The Imperials changed at that point in time. Wave 4 changed then again, and it just kept, changing and snowballing after that. It was.
So one thing I've wanted to touch on then, if we're going to talk about continuing Sean's point there from first edition into second edition, I think that goes really well into like the faction identities now that we're starting to see. I know this list isn't fully comprehensive, but when you compare something like the Trade Federation drone or a Gold Squadron trooper, I think when you look at like resistance lists, there'll be very few of those which have generic ships in them. Like you might have a couple of Phoenix Squadron A-Wings and things like that, but the majority of resistance is going to be carried by its named pilots. Whereas in First Order, once you get past Kylo, Quick Draw, Midnight, and Tavson, it should be Kylo, Tavson, Quick Draw, if you're going popular ships for them, then there's going to be a lot of generics. The faction identity leans in the way Sean was saying, that you'll have more of these style of ships, because that's how they're building the identities of those factions, which is a pretty neat way and cool way of doing it. I like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I like the way that it's shaken out that way.
And it's actually thematic. If you really go by the movies, it's, the Imperials had thousands of pilots to throw away, where the Rebels had very few to throw away.
It goes back to that original conversation we had whenever we first moved into second edition, and then we found out they had the similar conversation when we found out they were bringing Clone Wars into the game. Like, how are they going to make each of these independent factions feel different than, First Order is just an Imperial clone? Trade Federation, yeah, they've got a whole. They're going to swarm. They're going to do the same thing the TIE Fighter swarms is. Like they have their own identity.
Right. And that's what you want for a health of the game.
So
exactly.
If we scroll down to like the bottom one, it does the top 2 ships for each faction, and I kind of feel like I just vindicated myself. So I did tell you I hadn't read any of this, so it's all hot takes from Kris.
Yeah, exactly. So, you guys, you didn't get that off camera conversation right. This was gonna. He's not looked at this.
So
walked right into it.
Resistance. You have a number 1 pilot was Finn in the pod. And then the second one was Blue Squadron Recruit, so the A-Wing, I said. So, yeah. I'm a little bit sad that, like, Paul isn't in there more, because I don't, like, there's no, if you're going to play Resistance, you're going to fly, he should be stapled into every Resistance list, because, you know, he's one hell of a pilot. I'll leave now. It's okay, guys. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Just do rest assured about me. It's okay.
But again, as you break it down, so you've got Obi-Wan and Gold Squadron troopers with the Galactic Republic, Trade Federation drones and Separatist drones. It's just drones and drones and drones for the Separatists.
This makes me happy. Wedge number 1.
Wedge number 1 for the Rebels. And then a Blue Squadron scout right behind it. The Imperials, going more towards the name, Inquisitor and Darth Vader. You've already mentioned the Resistance, and then you've got Omega Squadron, Experts, and then Kylo Ren for the First Order being the big ones. Oh, and we forgot, of course, Scum and Villainy, Cartel Marauder, and Torquil Mox.
So it's interesting that that's one squad.
Yes.
Because it's Torquil and 3 Cartel Marauders, and either multiple, like a couple of other ships, or one other ship. Generally, like the list you were talking about, Ed, was Torquil, 3 Marauders, and Captain Sevar.
Yep.
So yeah, like Scum, because Scum was so underrepresented anyway, like the thing and First Order suffers from it the same way. If someone took a list like the one I was running, or like one list taking the 5 Omega Squadron experts, skews those 25 lists so heavily that it's interesting data, but how you process it is important, I think. But the big one that I really like is if you look at the upgrades.
Exactly where I was going to
go. Number 1 upgrade by a long way. Like this Crackshot has taken 63 more times than the second most common, which was grappling struts. And
on drones, and they were the most taken ship by far.
Yeah, so
205 to the next ship of 116.
Well, if you break it down this way, so there were 153 Trade Federation drones and 110 copies of grappling struts.
Yes.
So even if you discount Separatist drones from existing with struts, that's like 2/3, easily 2/3 of the Trade Federation drones came with struts.
Yes. Very popular.
But Crackshot blows that out of the water. The one thing I would have been interested to see a number on is how many times there was an empty EPT slot and points left over.
Ooh,
so people took a 1 point bid over Crackshot.
I would have liked to have seen the average point costs.
Yeah. Just so we can kind of tie it into our main topic. But like, how many times did someone not take a Crackshot in favour of a bid? That would have been interesting to see.
Would have been interesting to see.
Right.
Heroic being the next one, fire control systems, and the R2 generic astromech, rounding out the top 5. I just thought it was really cool. Normally you have to go to outside sources to get this kind of analysis on the meta that was Worlds 2020 or 2019. Really cool. I'm very FFG did a fantastic job for releasing this one. So I guess moves right into a main topic, doesn't it?
So I thought we could talk about the way we spend points. Like I said, when in the last few games I've played, I've made the effort to spend 200 points and not have a bid. I know in the past we've spoken about my belief that the bid is the best upgrade in the game. I don't want to go too deep into reasonings behind why I think the bid's so powerful and what I'd like to see changed on that, but more of like, where the line is for you and what benefits you think you can get from spending all of your points other than like the obvious. I thought it would be an interesting thing to talk about.
All right. Well, I'll take the first hack at this one. I think if you're running a list that is full of low initiative pilots, then the bid doesn't necessarily mean as much to you as it does to someone who has higher initiative. And the reasons why I'm going to mention that is like the reasons you're taking an I6 pilot is because you want to shoot first. You want to be able to know where everyone else has been positioned on the board. You want to be able to get yourself into the proper position so that you're getting shot, you're shooting and not getting shot at. If you're taking low initial pilots, you don't have that option. Your goal is you're playing almost a completely different game when it comes to that, because your goal is to block people out, try to maximize the amount, get all the shots lined up into one spot, build kill boxes. It's almost a completely different tactical game. So if you are running a vast majority of those low initiative generic pilots, you can force it to 200 and not really be so concerned about it. I mean, the 1 or 2 points that you could shave off, doesn't really matter to you.
Yeah, so with that thought in mind, then right, we'll go back and look at the scum list that I ran. So I've got Fenro in that list. I've got an I6 pilot, and I spent 200 points.
You are an anomaly.
But no, at what
because
point?
That's your highest one too, because you have an I5 and 2 I4s, right?
No, an I5, an I4, and an I2.
Okay, there you go. So it's even worse.
Yeah. So I've been an advocate for a while with Fenro. He's that predictable in where you want him to be that you don't really need to have him moving last. You've not got a double reposition on him, so it's not like he's going to boost and barrel roll. You know, he's doing one or the other. So if I'm moving him first, I can put him in a position where you're either going to bump him or you're going to be shooting him at range 1, which is probably what I want anyway. You know, unless you're flying like all I6s and moving last, you know, I don't really worry about it. And for me, that's an easy line. That for Fenro, I'm happy if he moves last. I'm happy if he moves first. It doesn't really bother me. What do you think about that then?
It's a little pilot specific, based specifically on his ability. I would agree in that specific instance. Yeah. I would agree with that statement. In general, though, I don't know that that's in general the rule of thumb to follow. I think if you're going to be going with an aces and guarding your I6s with the intent of needing that advanced knowledge to be able to keep yourself from being shot, you need to start taking the bid a little bit more seriously.
Well, okay, so there's, I think, 2 parts to this that I look at. One, if you know the meta you're going to be playing in, so you know the tournament, if it's a store championship or level or regional level, and you know the majority of your opponents, I think you're looking at your player skill and knowledge of the list over the potential list you're going to be facing, and especially the potential players you're going to be facing. So in that regard, that means that Fenral's ability is what you're playing off of, because you know that more times than not, you're going to be in a good enough position at the end of the day to win games with that list, just because the player skill may not be up to you. The second part of it is, the second thing about that is, to me, is that if you know that the meta is going to be a low pilot skill meta or potentially a lower pilot skill meta, you're playing with that in mind. So your strategy, and I think it's always been this way, Ed, where your strategy has always been built by the meta and then the players in that meta. And if you're playing against really good players, do you take a risk with a 5-4-2 type list or a 5-4-1 type list? Or do you want to find a list that you can play that's a 6-5-4 list or whatever, you know, the three pilots? Or do you want to take your skill up against the better players with a low pilot skill list or a low initiative bid list, low initiative pilot list, and play the game where you're blocking instead of being an overall aggressor. You're forcing them to be actionless. It's X-Wing to me today hasn't changed from what it was in 2013. The concept still exists. The list that you build still hold the same measure. You just have a deeper player base, and you have deeper library of ships. I think that's where it falls into, is that if I'm going to be able to maximize. So a good example was the crack shots, like Kris talked about earlier. If I want 1, 2, or 3 point bid for whatever reason, and I leave a EPP open because I want that 3 points, well, you just gave 3 points up to potentially get a bid, an initiative bid, or do I take those 3 points and make my ships better, make my play, the ability that I have better in the game? That to me is what this is all about. That's what the measure of the game is, and what your decision making is on whether I want to take points away from my list or maximize the points on my list.
And that's one of the reasons, Sean, why I'm really happy that Crackshot feels like it's a really good value card at one point. You'd probably take Crackshot for 2 points, if we're honest. I don't think there've been massive complaints if Crackshot costs 2 points. But at one point, I think it's awesome. But it also makes it like, well, is it worth not putting Crackshot on?
Right. Exactly.
And having an upgrade that is that I could just do this. And so I think a good way, because you've won a decent amount of Vader, Ed.
I have.
Yeah. At what point do you bid on Vader?
So,
where's your comfort zone for putting a bid in?
I need Vader to go last. I need to know where everything is so that I can adapt with the most amount of perfect knowledge possible. Yeah. So, I know I've said this quote several times in other shows. Ryan Fleming from our local Pittsburgh group gave me the best advice whenever it came to the points bids. If you're going to do the points bids, take it seriously. So, like, he would run ships back in the first edition days where he was taking like 5, 6, 7 point points bids because it was that important to him that 7 points was buying him the initiative. So you need to think of it that way. Yeah. So for me, in my instance, if it were like Vader and a bunch of ties that I could put Crackshot on, but I really need him to go first, and I'm going to shave 10 points off my list to guarantee that I get that. Well, not necessarily guarantee, because there's always that guy's going to go 11.
Yeah,
there's always the guy that's going to dial it up to 11.
That's where that's where the conversation ends up. That we can skip ahead and look at that if you like. But like, would you drop afterburners off Vader to get a bigger bid? Because now you can't double reposition, but you get to move last, shoot first.
Well, no, because I think part of that is you need the ability to do the double positioning. I would shave it somewhere else. I don't know that I would shave it specifically off of the key pilot in that list is obviously Vader, so he needs to be at maximum efficiency. You would shave those points somewhere else, I would think.
Okay. So let me see if I've got a Vader list here. I must have one somewhere. No, I don't even know it. So
hold on, let's hop on to List Fortress. You can grab any Vader list from List Fortress.
Yeah. So I built this one. Might be interesting to you because it's an Imperial list. So I had Cynthia Fell with Crackshot, Duchess with Crackshot and Fifth Brother, Pure Sabak with Crackshot, and then a Scarif base pilot with Death Troopers.
I remember that list.
Yeah, that's 198 points. So I've got a 2 point bid for Fell.
No. That doesn't feel right.
But so my counter, I understand you, but if you make your point, I don't need to interrupt you in here. That's just
no. The point's pretty much the same one. Like for me, I would do. So how much is Fifth Brother again?
Fifth Brother's 9 points on Duchess.
So Duchess is at 6'2" though.
She's at 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and it's good. I like the fact that you're struggling with this because it gets into the crux of it. That it's a 4-ship list.
Yeah.
If Fel moves last, that's good. If Fel doesn't move last, he's 54 points.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm flying a 120-point Anakin here. I don't care. If Fel's
what does Vader come out to? Like 78, 80?
Yeah. So I don't care that I've only got a 2-point bid. If there was something decent, I probably would do a different upgrade. Or
then you start getting into the differences, in my opinion, the difference between a 4-ship build and a 3-ship build.
Yeah. But that's part of it. Like, I feel like if Fel is moving first, but he's also in a list that's got 3 other 3-dice attack ships in with him. So if I was build a list right now, I think this will be fun.
All right. So while you're talking through that, so just kind of tipping into that.
Yeah.
The 3-ship. Let's take the 3-ship list that won Worlds. It's a fantastic opportunity to discuss that list. Okay. So you've got Vader, you've got the Inquisitor, and you've got Whisper. You've got all top end 655 pilots. Now you would have thought that losing Vader would have lost him the game. And it nearly did. However, because of his ability to be able to outmaneuver all those other pilots, he was still able to pull that off and still be able to pull the win. But that is a 3-ship Aces build. A 4-ship or a 5-ship build has a completely different tactic going in. They're less reliant on individual pieces. Losing one ship doesn't necessarily break it down. If it were anybody else other than Ollie, I think, and myself included, the minute Vader would have gone down, the game was probably over. For most people don't have that type of focus to be able to keep it into that.
So let me interject a question.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So if that's the case, if you're looking at a 3 high initiative ship list as what you're taking, so Ollie's list is an example, wouldn't it be better to maximize everything in your list rather than worrying about the once in a while matchups that you're going to get that will cause you to have to even stress about an initiative bit? Maximization is the mid-maxing once again. So
this is a touchy area. Go ahead, keep
well,
going.
It is because if I'm playing a bunch of ships that are throwaway ships, right? So I'm playing a 5 or 6 ship list or 4 or 5, 6 ship list. I'm planning on, number one, it's about maximization. So it's about taking, focusing, maximizing, which we saw in the final, actually. That 4-ship list he went against was about maximizing shots at a single ship. And once that doesn't happen, once that leaves that kill box, then you get into the fact that now you have ships that are better flyers that can, outmaneuver, that are moving later against the lower pilot skill ships lists and are able to defeat them just on the ship's ability, unless you're a bad player and a bad flyer. The biggest thing is that I think in 2.0, with the 200-point bid now that exists, and yes, it's paralleled with the 100 points. I get all that points are relative to 100 points. Is a 1 or 2 point bid enough? Is giving up a crack shot or 2 enough to even get a bid? If you're going up against a player that's serious, that's playing, like Ollie's list, and he gives up 5 points, let's say, you're already at a disadvantage right then and there. The only time I think this matters, from my brain in the way that I view X-Wing, is if you're in a mirror match. That's the only time that this truly matters in a large,
mirror match in that like archetype, basically.
Correct.
Like you're running an aces list, but your aces are scum aces as opposed to imperial aces. Yeah, no, I would agree.
And that's my point, is that I think that maximizing the aces makes it better for you, especially if you view the game as, turn 0 all the way to end game, it actually maximizes you in the end game, because having more abilities on your ships, having the ability to do something compared to giving up something which may not allow you to do that in the end game, I'm leaning towards, if you're playing aces, you're trying to get as close to 200 as possible. Unless you're worried about a meta where you're going to have tons of aces in it. Then that changes your thought process, because now you're having to play to be able to do, like you said, Ed, you want all the information. You want everything to move before you so that you can make your decisions on how you're going to maneuver after.
Okay, so there's so much to unpack there.
There's a lot.
So the first thing I want to touch on is the full maximizations. At some point in time, you're spending points for spending points' sake.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to call back to your boy Kinetic Operator and his 2 Phantom list. Could he have spent 12 points? Maybe not even necessarily, like the whole thing with that list, for those who aren't aware. Again, back in first edition days, whenever the Phantoms were scary monsters, Aaron Bonner ran Echo and Whisper, maximized those 2 ships, came out to 88 points. Now, he could have spent 12 points on a Academy TIE pilot, and he elected not to do that because he felt like that's the first ship that's going to get blown off the board, and I'm going to be giving points to my opponent, which was the right call.
Well, what we found with that, Ed, was that ship actually ended up getting in the way. And
there's that too. Yeah, there is that part of it.
You're giving up 12 points, where when Aaron maximized that list, he actually got it to 87 points.
Wow.
Yeah, it was called 87 at the end, and when he took it to tournaments and stuff. That's the thing, is that's a list because of the abilities of the 2 ships. That's a whole
and the pilot.
I don't think you can really take the equivalency now. Cloaking's been fixed. I get where you were going. I think the continuation of that takes it in a direction that's not meaningful to a discussion anymore. But taking it back to Ollie's list.
All right, I want to push back on that for just a second. So I disagree, and so my thought process on this one is: so he elected to not spend the 12 points on that. He could have, could he have wanted to, with the abilities at the time and the upgrades at the time, he could have made it a 100-point list with 2 ships.
Yeah.
He chose not to do that.
Yeah.
And he chose not to do it because he needed the bid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that was physically possible, but
I think he could have made bad choices. I'll put it that way. He could have made bad choices to get it to that points bid.
Yeah, and you're talking about, does the upgrade make, and we've had this when we spoke about bids being overpowered initially. I can't remember what episode it was on now, but does the point you're spending make the squad better or not?
Right, and that's kind of that's the point that I'm kind of to drive at. Is like, you could spend points. Is it really making the squad better?
Yeah, but looking at Ollie's list, he's got a 3-point bid. So is that enough for you to feel comfortable with not just Vader, but 2 Initiative 5 pilots after that?
For me personally, no, but I didn't just win Worlds like he did. So that's just, so that gets into the other things that I wanted to unpack on that one. So the other part of that one, I really like the parallel that Sean pulled on that one, was are you comfortable with your 3-ship build, and you're really playing for the mirror match. That is strictly based on pilot skill, like your personal pilot skill. If I know going in that if I run these 3 ships and I see a 5, 6, or 7 ship build, I can beat it. I know that unless the dice completely go haywire on me, I have the skills, I know the tactics, I know how to beat that list. Then you're right. That's absolutely right. Then you don't need that big of a pilot initiative bid, because all you need is those couple of points to get ahead of the other aces builds that are coming here, which is the strategy that Ollie used, and obviously it worked.
Yeah. So then I'll give you a list that I just built, and we'll unpack And I know where this conversation will go, but fundamentally, you just wouldn't build this list. But so we're going to have a naked Cynthia Fell at 53 points. Yeah.
I'm cringing, but go ahead.
Yeah.
This is a hypothetical.
Then 3 Alpha Squadron Interceptors and a Scarif-based pilot with a shield upgrade. And that's 200 points. So you've now got a 5-ship list. One of them's got 9 hit points and a 3-dice attack. The other, we've got 3 interceptors, all with 3-dice attacks, and then Fell as well. But you've got no bid.
But it's a 5-point list. It's a 5-ship list.
Yeah.
It plays differently than it. So I guess that's where the question comes in: is where it's more list archetype almost is what.
Yeah. So
what determines that bid either being important or not important?
So do you drop a 34-point interceptor so that you can then make Fell have, we'll say, I don't know, what do you want something? We'll give him a Woosif because you want to keep him alive, and we're going to just point his
that would be
in.
nice, yes.
So we'll give him a shield upgrade and a hull upgrade now. Yeah. So now you've only got 14 points to spread across your entire list. 16 points to put in the rest of the list. So we could drop the shield upgrade, but now your Scarif-based pilot's on an even number of points. So we'd probably change him to Major Vermeil.
And then you start getting into a completely different archetype.
Yeah. So now you've only got 12 points left.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's 12 points. You've got no upgrades on Vermeil. You've still only got 2 initiative ones. And you've only got a 12-point bid. So 12 points is going to guarantee Fell moves last, plucking percentages out of the air that feel good, like 95% of the time. A 12-point bid is going to be enough.
Yeah, probably.
But the moment you make a mistake with Fell's off the board, and now now the rest of your list, can you keep up with what's left?
Yeah. And is it easier to keep up now? And like I said, do you then instead, do you drop the initiative 1 interceptors and go to what effectively becomes the list Travis was running, where you've got Countdown and then TIE Fighter Gideon Hask, I think it was. So now you've only got a 6-point bid, but you've got Countdown with a hull upgrade. Yeah, we'll give him a hull upgrade because that's funny.
Sure.
Because
it's funny.
Well, you just want to take longer to die. That's it. The end.
Yeah.
So, and then Gideon can have stuff. I don't know. Yeah. So okay, if you do this, you've got Fell at 71 points, Vermeil naked, Countdown with a hull upgrade, and Gideon naked, and now you've got a 1-point bid. But you've got a 6 and 3 4s.
Feels better.
Every time you do this, though, you're changing your list.
Yeah, and that's fine. I know it's.
No, you're changing the list. Changing the archetype is really.
Yeah,
we've completely gone away. We've gone away from a 5-ship list that had all 3-dice attacks to now it's a 4-ship list that's like one of them's a conditional 3-dice attack because Gideon has to go last, and if they've got a damage card on them.
It's funny you mentioned this because I've played a list very similar to that. I remember running Turfineer. This is old first edition again. Turfineer Fell basically naked, and then a bunch of the Alpha Squadron because you're running 15 red dice on the table, and that plays complete. Oh no, I lost Fell because that's too bad. I was using Fell to kite you around the board anyway, so the rest of the Alphas in the back are lighting you up like a Christmas tree.
That's the trick with that list. Do you put Fell in a suboptimal position to give them shots that would actually be better spent shooting at the Alphas that they can initiative kill?
But if you leave Fell go, Fell's behind you and he's blowing you up.
Yeah,
exactly.
So then and like I said, this is
it
where
gives you more places to make bad decisions.
Yeah. So, and again, it comes down to like, there's no right or wrong answer for that.
No, there's definitely not.
Is it
it's also play style. It's also there's so many things that are involved.
And
I think to answer the question, Kris, I think to answer the question, it comes down to what your comfort level is with the list that you're playing. Truthfully, you know, if I'm playing a low initiative bid list without any aces, do I care about initiative bid?
Yeah, and that's the answer's always going to be, if you're not flying an ace, that the bids, you're always better off spending your points. You want to count to 200, as the colloquialism goes.
Exactly. Unless you have an I6, don't even just go to 200. There's no reason not to.
But I'd say fives, it's important, maybe more so, because the competition between the fives is quite high.
Okay, all right.
Let's have a look at.
So are we saying like 5 and 6s unless you're running a 5 and 6, because you're paying for a premium, and the points that you're paying for aren't necessarily their abilities. It's that initiative. So it's become important to you, so you might as well.
I mean, I can look at a list that I was trying out. So I was running my Anakin list, where it was a 4-ship Anakin list. Where Anakin's got calibrated, predictive shot, and a 4 astromech. So I got a 10-point bid in that list because Anakin can't regen, is running the 3 agility, like the calibrated ways of targeting over Delta 7s. And I can't make a mistake with him. So then I feel like he needs a bid. But does he, though? Yeah. Like, would I be better served, rather than having Tucker as my 4th ship, would I be better served to like spend that 10 points on a beefier, more attack-focused ship, and then if Anakin dies, the rest of the squad can do the work?
This is the age-old question. I have an ace. What's the best accompaniment?
Yeah.
This is your Whisper mini swarm. I'm going to run Whisper, but if Whisper goes down, I've got 4 TIE fighters that still need to be able to go through it that can help plow through and win through the list. This is the age-old question on what you do with your accompanying ace. So you go 2 different directions. You do what Ollie did, and you go with more aces. Or you go the opposite direction, where you've got 1 ace and a swarm to be able to lift the weight. They're bullet monkeys to start off with. You can't ignore them because they are rolling red dice each and every turn. I don't know. Again, I think I'm leaning in Sean's direct. It's all down to playstyle. I personally love the Ace Mini Swarm archetype. I don't know that we've. Again, I'm not that way up to what's going on competitively. I don't know that we've seen a lot of that. I know that that's semi what the Federation drones are, because they don't really have a high pilot skill one. It's mostly just swarm. But is there even an Ace Mini Swarm archetype anymore?
I don't know that necessarily. Sorry, go on, Sean.
Well, is there one that wins?
Yeah, okay, fair argument.
So what about Wedge? Wedge and stuff, does that count?
Wedge and stuff counts.
Is Wedge an ace?
Absolutely.
And that's where you get into, like, is an ace just an Initiative 6 pilot? Or is an ace one that lives and dies on its positioning?
Oh.
Well, I think that might be twofold. It could be viewed as a pilot that lives and dies with positioning, that matters, or a pilot that can actually affect things in the game, like Wedge does. Wedge actually reduces a ship's ability where it gives him an advantage. To me, that's an ace. A ship that allows you to have an advantage over another ship, and even another ace, makes it an ace. So Wedge over Vader, when Wedge is shooting at Vader, is Vader at an advantage or disadvantage?
So would you take, in an endgame situation, would you rather have a loaded up Wedge again, or a loaded up Guri in that? Is Wedge ever going to shoot Guri if it's one-on-one?
Probably not, unless you're playing the range 3 game to try to shoot Guri.
So, and then which one of those is the ace in that scenario then?
Oh, Guri is by far.
Yeah. And
but once again, though, that's a pilot against pilot. That you're now having.
I'm warping the question to suit my my thing. I get that,
but in most, to me, Wedge is not an end game ship. It never has been an end game ship. Wedge is a ship that wields the hammer at the beginning during the alpha and during the mid game. You could lose Wedge for the end game because there just isn't enough that Wedge can do positionally. And if you're going to surround Wedge with ships, if you can, you want to surround them with end game ships. Where Wedge will be the hammer, and then everything else is the cleanup.
That's an excellent point, and that will be one of the cruxes of why I wouldn't class Wedge as an ace.
Well, I get that. I mean, I view, so for me personally, the way that I view aces, is I view aces in phases of the game. So Wedge is a great example of an early game ace. He may not make it to the end game, but he's an early game ace. He's going to potentially, and I'm going to say this is potentially, get you value in the in that first alpha to second phase attack rounds that exist. He's not an end game ship. He's not a ship that's going to win you the game, but he is an ace in that regard. Yuri, on the other hand, is the opposite. To me, Yuri's more of an end game ship, in my opinion, than he is as a beginning. You don't want him in the alpha. You don't want him being engaged in the alpha if you can help it. You want him living to the end game because he has great advantages over a lot of ships in the game.
Yeah.
Vader to me is the streamlined ship. He's the ship that can be the alpha hammer. He can be the end game hammer. Suntir Fel is the glass cannon ace who, as long as you play him perfectly or close to perfectly, and you don't make mistakes with Suntir Fel, he's a hammer throughout the game, but he's also fragile. When I look at the Inquisitor is to me like Vader. He's like a mixture between Vader and Wedge, where he can be in a beginning or end game ace, but he can't, unless you're really good with him. He's either gonna die early or he's gonna die late. It's just the way that he is. So that's just my examples of aces, in different types. If you want to get into, I think Han is an ace just because of ability alone. The ship, the amount of damage the ship can take, what you can do with that ship to avert damage, things like that. Han's an ace, but it's a different type of ace,
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes into. Like, I would consider Fenro a good closing ship.
Agreed.
But equally, I'm not scared of losing him early. If I can put him into a position where if I get 2 5-dice attacks off at you, and it takes you 2 rounds to kill him early, and I've done 10 damage, or like realistically 6 or 7 damage from one ship.
Even if you're doing 5, that's half the amount of attack dice worth of damage.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah. And Vader's another really strong example that Vader, I build lists around Vader where he's a bully. He's there to force you to react to him. So I don't care if I move him first or last. Right. Because you have to react to where I've put my Vader because he's a wrecking ball. There's a potential that he's going to just sit in front of you, target lock focus you, hand out like 3 hits and a crit with ease, and still have mods on defense. And if you keep Vader at cheat level, like it's 70 points, it's fine, whatever. Like, I'll sit my Vader with literally just advanced targeting computer in front of you. Or you can do passive sensors like Ollie showed, and then it literally doesn't matter because you can barrel roll in the engagement phase. So,
right. See, and what's interesting to me is that everybody had a different view of what an ace is. I knew a guy who in first edition thought Econ Abat was an ace because of ability. He allows other ships to do something, to get crits. And to me, I could never get the point across to him that he's a crappy E-Wing to begin with. who has to be positionally placed correctly. And if I know where you want to place him, I can probably blow him up off the board pretty easily.
So I think this is probably
Taliban Carver was the same way with that one. Like first edition, he was ice. He was an I-9, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was top initiative.
Yeah, but nobody ever ran him because he was garbage.
Right.
I think
tried.
A good conversation here on the next show maybe would be like us taking our time to define aces and
what's an ace.
Yeah, because I think that's like the crux fix. I get what Ed's talking about, but I think the only time I'm all in on a bid is if this breaks it down to the two reasons I think you take a bid. One of them is to let you move last, but separate from that is the advantage that a bid gives you in that it's floating points that, unless you get all of your ships destroyed, can't be removed. So the only time I would want that is when I have multiple ships that rely on positioning. If I only have one ship, I am less bothered about taking a bid now. If I've only got one ship that has to be the closer, it doesn't matter if I've got a bid or not, because that's the ship my opponent knows they need to kill, and once it's dead, they can kill the rest of the squad, because the rest of the squad isn't designed to be closers. So in that game where I spoke about against Mark, where I had the Transition Slaver, Kimagilla, and Fenro, if Fenro dies early, I lose that game 100% of the time. It's irrelevant, because I've got one ship that can't turn around on a large base. It's only the only white turn it has is a 3 hard. It's 2 hards red. It doesn't have a 1 anymore. It doesn't have a K turn. You're hitting, you know what I mean? It flies like a big lumbering party buzz that it is. And then I've got a Kimagilla, which was fine to fly, but it's a medium base ship. It's not that hard to not get shot by if that's the only things you need to worry about. But I still stand by the fact I don't think Fen needs to move last to get to the end game, because I can pressure your ace with my 180-degree arc and my snapshotting shit, right, and try and control you that way. So
yeah, it's the whole package. It's what's accompanying your ace.
Yeah. In my thing that I'll throw out there, which we'll talk about on the next show maybe, is Boba Fett an ace.
Yeah, and that's good, so that brings it on to like the other scum list where I do have I've got the exact same Fenro build, but I've now got an 8-point bid, and that's because I'm flying in with Boba Fett with Slave 1, and then I've got L3 just for some coordination shenanigans.
Right.
So I'm willing to give you an 8-point bid because that benefits Bubba and Fett.
Right.
So,
but that comes down to, if you're playing Boba Fett and you're building a list around Boba Fett, whether it be Fenrau or any other ship in the game, is Boba Fett an ace? And we'll talk about that in another time. But that is kind of the leader into this, is because it's just like you asked if Wedge is an ace.
Yeah.
That one's still like, because my immediate reaction was, of course he is. But
he may be.
But is he though?
But is he though? And you're right. The more I get, is he an ace? Because again, that goes into that. What makes an ace? Is it the fact that he has an I6 makes him an ace? Well, no, not necessarily.
It's what he can do on the board. But if you have a ship that can take another ship or 2 off the board, does that make him an ace? Before you kill a ship, if he can take 2 off the board, does that make him an ace?
Yeah, it just goes by, is he going to buy his points back? If I invest,
right.
I don't know, what's the average Wedge? 72, 74?
No, it's not even. It's like, I suppose if you're going torpedoes, I've got a Wedge list, I'm sure. So my Wedge is 58 points. Crackshot, right. R4. So this is the aciest I've chose to make Wedge. 58 points, and he's got R4 astromech. It's garbage, right? Why even bother?
I don't even want to take conversation away from the next show, because I can already see what it is. Yeah. I know in my head what defines an ace to me, and that's not it.
Yeah, there we go. So
we'll save.
Do you want to put a pin in? I think we're all agreed.
I think we should, because this is going to spin off into multiple different conversations. I think is defining what is an ace.
Yeah. Well, and going back to initiative, what defines what classifies the need for initiative? For a 3-point initiative, for a 5 or a 7-point initiative in this game today. What defines that need? And I think it's, to me personally, is if you're a confident player, you don't need an initiative bid. You have the confidence that you're going to be able to beat anybody with a max list. That's a quality max list, not just throwing crap on ships to get there.
Right.
Okay. But if you're a player who may not be that confident, may not be that skilled, maybe newer or whatever, you may need an initiative bid because you don't have the confidence in that. So you need all of the information to be there in front of you for your aces to be able to do their job. You could also be a player like me that really doesn't fly very many lists where you're playing aces anyway. There's a few that I have, but really I like the off-brand list. I like the list that 3 fire sprays. I think that's a kick-ass list. Do I need initiative with that list? No, I don't.
That's actually a really good point. There's a lot to be said for that player skill because it can be used as a helping hand. This is going to come ever since I started flying Palp Aces and whatever variety of Palp Aces was from first edition, moving forward. Once throwing Palpatine in a Space Cow and tossing 2 other ships with him became a thing, I flew that same archetype for 2 years straight.
So I think one of the last games we played was your Palp Shuttle and the Defenders, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And did it matter that they moved first?
Against you? No.
But in your playstyle with that list, those defenders are moving first.
Right, but all right. So if we want to go into my thought process on that one is if I'm playing any other list other than another Aces list, I know I can beat it because I know I've got between the 2 defenders and Palpatine. I know I've got the positioning. I know how to fly because there's a significant amount of skill involved in having that level of confidence in yourself and knowing your abilities to be able to do that.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, you need that bid to help you out.
Yeah. Right. And that's where I think, truthfully to me, with the exception of a few lists or however you want to put it, really and truthfully, it's all about what makes you feel comfortable in your playing of the game. Do I need a bid? Yes, because I need all the information I can get. Do I need a bid? No, because I know that my play, in whatever you want to call it, arrogance or just true skill, I'm walking in with all the information to begin with.
Just be a Billy Big Balls, sit down and fucking, I'm flying foul, 200 points, deal with it.
Go.
Well, I mean, I'm going to throw this out there. Look at Paul Heaver.
Thank you. You're going to the same place I am.
Paul Heaver was a guy that knew what he was doing before he ever set up to the table. He knew what your list could do before he ever set up at the table. And as soon as the rocks were placed, he knew how to play against your list at that table with his list. Paul knew what was going on. And then the beauty of Paul was the fact that if something didn't go exactly as planned, he was a good enough player to be able to rearrange what he's doing, his plan, his strategy, to another strategy that was working, that would work. He could stop the bleeding, and then he could take advantage and take over the game. I watched that.
Paul also had a tendency to build that kind of stuff into his list, though.
Right.
So, for example, his Han Shoots First list, the Fat Han list, he intentionally not only built his Han to play against other Hans, but he also took his Talas over Bandits so that he knew that in a mirror match, he had the advantage.
Yeah, but that was also because he tricked most of the... I'm not going to say trick, that's a bad way to put it. But it basically comes down to about that, everybody else, and it's the same thing Aaron Bonner would do to us in Omaha, where we would all build a list we would all go play, and then that day of the game, Aaron had a better list than we did because he changed it and he made it better. Became a better, so he could beat us every time because he had the better ships on the table. Same thing Paul, did to a lot of the guys there. The only game I ever saw Paul physically play where he did not play his best game was in either top 8, whatever it was, the Worlds, the top 8 or 16, where he flew a ship off the table and his opponent wouldn't allow him to fly a ship off the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it. That's the only time that I've ever, in the games I've seen, and I've seen Paul play a lot of games because he came to Omaha and played games in Omaha. I've seen Paul play a lot of games, and he never really had, even in his losses, he didn't play poorly. If he lost a game, it was because either something happened that he couldn't control and it just took his list out of whack, or multiple things did.
Do you ever think, I've always wanted to know this, you'll have to ask him the next time you see it, do you ever think in the dark recesses of his deepest, darkest nights, Patrick McDonald thinks to himself, if I'd have just left him run that fucking ship off the board, I'd have been world champion? Did you ever think, it's outside of his character, I get that, but somewhere in the back of his mind, he's got to be like, if I let Paul run that off, I win that game.
So do you want to know what really annoys me about this story? At what point does it become, Paul took a focus instead of an evade? That's a suboptimal choice, which Paul would never do. So I'm going to tell him that he can just evade this attack. Or Paul rolled 5 blanks when he had, a focus and was behind range 3 behind a rock. So I'm just going to say, no, your ship doesn't die, because that shouldn't happen. Paul either flew a fucking ship off a table against you. You take that shit, motherfucker.
I mean, at any point in any game that I would have ever played, I would have done it. But that's the way that Patrick, or not Patrick, it's James. James.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I thought it was the other one.
It's James. James, the way that James summed it up to me was the fact that he wanted to beat Paul straight. He didn't want it to be where Paul, that type of thing happened.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
I know, I understand. I get it. I know exactly what you're talking, and that's where what's the saying? It's the God dang it, it's a famous saying too. But it's Paul. I think what happened was Paul had a celebrity about him.
Yeah,
and people played to that celebrity. Paul had an advantage due to that. Because people,
because it's intimidating. Absolutely.
The thing about that is what I'm saying. If Paul would have the dial slipped or he revealed a right when he meant a left, that's one thing. But Paul picked a move that happened to put his ship off a table.
Yeah.
So Paul made a bad call.
Right.
Right.
And what it was is, it was just like Aaron Bonner did when he was playing 87 and lost in the top 4 in Kansas City. It wasn't because he was playing a bad game. It's because he turned left, I think, rather than turning right. And he, and the thing is that that's what happens after playing 12 hours of X-Wing is sometimes what you have in your brain doesn't always reach your hands, and it doesn't always.
I'm sure I've told the story on the show before, but I was playing against Patrick, who had a game streamed at Worlds, and he narrowly lost to make day 2. And I got up, walked around the table, was looking at my Chewie, and was like, I'm going to have to do a 3K because the 4K doesn't fit. Sat down and I dialed in the 4K.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. Yeah.
I flew Chewie off the table.
Right.
And we both knew that I meant to dial in the 3. I didn't ask for a take back. Patrick didn't offer, and he shouldn't. That part of being in a tournament is the endurance. This is well off topic of. So I can roll this back. So Paul at Worlds 2019 flew General Grievous with Impervium Plate in Solus 1, Shuretech with Ensnare, and Sunfac with Ensnare, and a 19-point bid.
Now, is that balls that are touching the floor, or is that because there just wasn't any value in anything else in that list?
There's things you can add in
Sunfac.
Yeah.
And
he was supremely, and in the hands of almost any other player, I probably would.
Paul finished overall. Paul was top 64.
Yeah, that is supreme confidence in his ability to take Sunfac and run the field with him. Yeah. I don't need those 19 points. I'm going to make you take them from me.
Yeah, and I get that, and that's, like I said, balls on the floor.
Yeah, you know? It's exactly what that is.
You know,
it's that important to Paul that he spent 19 points to guarantee that his Sunfac move last.
Yeah, what I'm saying here is we were just talking, like, the examples, the reason Paul came up is because he spends 200 points. Or as close as damage.
Usually, yes.
Yeah. But, like, even Paul Heaver's willing to go, you know what? This 19-point bid seems pretty damn good.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask one more question about Paul here. Paul won 3 world championships in a row.
Yeah.
Paul in this game has nothing to prove, right?
No.
Not to anyone, no.
So he's a guy that can run a list with a 17-point bid.
19
point bid, and nobody's going to even bat an eye about it because it's Paul. You know, and that's no. I mean, seriously,
finish up. Yeah.
Nobody's going to bat an eye. Now, whether it's a good choice or not, you know, if Paul was going to win Worlds, would he have run that list?
Yeah, I think Paul thought that this was a strong squad that gave him a chance to win Worlds, because I think this is a strong squad that has a chance to win. The problem with it is that it lives and dies by not getting shot on Sunfac. Like, Sunfac has to live.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, but I've never seen, you know, a list that Paul has played has always had, I'm going to call it built-in safety nets.
Yeah, this one does not have a safety net.
Clearly did not. I don't know. I'm on a strong belief that after his 3rd world championship, Paul's like, you know what? I need to start playing with my hand behind my back to see if
I'm not. So let's roll back to the Separatist list I said I played earlier on, right at the start of the show. That's pretty similar to this, except I didn't want to run Sunfac. I took Maul instead because, like, I don't think I'm going to win by getting Sunfac to the end game, so I need to kill you earlier. So I'll spend all 200 points. So I'll take the 78 points from Sunfac, add 19 to them, and have a decently punchy Darth Maul in there.
And we're already talking about our next show, but that goes back to Wedge then, because now you're, you know, wanting to try to do as much as you can early game. It's that same argument. So I'm gonna shut up because I think I'll just end up walking us down paths we don't want to go.
I'll save it for 2 weeks from now.
So I think, shall we try and summarize on, like, bids then? So we've established that it needs higher initiative is tantamount to needing a bid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And then I think, like, we're pretty much in agreement to it needs to be a positional ship or multiple ships that are benefiting from it.
Yep, I would agree with that.
So,
because you gave good examples like Wedge, for example, who's not a positional ship, who doesn't necessarily need the initiative bid.
Yeah. And then I think, in summary, if your squad isn't actually made stronger, maybe take the bid then. Like, don't put what would it be, like, munitions fail-safes on all of your ships if you don't have ordnance, just to spend the points.
Yeah, don't spend points just to spend points.
Yeah. So there we go.
Yep.
So we do have some listener questions this week. I'm just going to run straight into them. This is from Will, who's one of our newer Patreons. With the moving efficiencies of wing tools, do you think epic play will be a thing in large competitive scenes? And are we excited to see huge ships active on the table again?
I have been... All right, so Will, I don't know how long you've been around with the show. I have been preaching this forever. It's, in my opinion, the reason why Epic didn't do nearly as well in first edition and what it could be in second edition is the fact that Fantasy Flight Games never supported competitive Epic play. I think it could absolutely be a competitive game. I think it plays very different than your standard 200-point squads. And I think it is possible. They do. I don't know if you know what other miniature games you guys play, but there are Warhammer 40K tournaments every single week somewhere in this country. That is a 3-hour game every time it's played, 3 rounds, 4 rounds, multi-day tournaments. It can absolutely be done. I feel it is possible for that game to be competitive, and I hope that it leads in that direction. But it needs the support, FFG. We need the support.
Okay.
I don't know. Was I just Sean have anything more, or I'm usually the epic fanboy in this group.
So Will's in Calgary. He knows my thoughts on it. Like, I ran epic events when it was horrible to run epic events, and they were basically 2 rounds and just fun. I don't know that there will ever be a large. Like, I don't think there's going to be like hyperspace epic events. I think there might be some support for them, but it'll definitely be like a rotating format. Like, there's as much chance of there being epic tournaments as there are quick build tournaments.
Yeah, I think what you'll see with epic is you'll see it maybe some support in whatever the monthly kits or quarterly kits are, or whatever they are. They might have a card or 2 in there, or kind of like what they've done with other stuff, but there's never going to be a tournament kit that's specific for epic, I think.
But there so easily could be an epic world championship. You'd run it the same weekend. Like,
they ran epic at Worlds. They ran epic at Worlds.
Okay, but it was
they already have an epic, and I'm not being facetious here.
No. I know you're not. I know where you're going.
But they already have an epic world championship. It's called Armada, and I'm not being an ass about that either. But
you're right.
You know, epic was never. I don't think was ever designed to be a system that was a top level event style tournament. You know, if you ever look at what they did with Epic at Gen Con and some of these other large cons and events, it was a side event. You know,
yeah,
that's all it ever was, and you got extra stuff that they had. They never really. I don't think they ever really made special prizes for Epic. Maybe a card or 2, but never.
I have.
I know you have.
So I am going to point out we do have 5 more questions to do.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, let's move on.
It could. I'm going to leave it at that. It very well could be. All they have to do is push the button. They have their own epic events, epic prize support, epic world championship. It can be. I also happen to agree with Sean. I don't think that's what they want it to be because they've got Armada.
And it's space. It's a space taxing game.
Same size mat as Armada. Just saying, Sean.
Okay. So we have a question from Suresh. Just finish up the current episode, wondering if the game can do anything to reward aggression whilst maintaining the lack of objectives in the game, e.g. change MLV to something like points destroyed as a tiebreaker. I'm assuming this is rather than final salvo. This is not a perfect solution, but it is a starting idea. I personally haven't been on the receiving end of anyone personally choosing not to position to engage me in 2.0. But I understand the assertion that the possibility of this creates problems. Not sure changing the Star Viper is the points for Star Viper is the solution. I'd rather see points change is based on making lesser played ships and upgrades more attractive. So that's the final point. I think is probably easiest to address. Obviously, he's a fan of basically buffing ships rather than nerfing them, which I think is a fundamentally better way to actually do it. You want to try and raise everything to a top level. Sometimes, though, I think it is definitely easier to trim the top rather than raise multiples. But that's just my opinion on game balance in general.
Yeah, with balance, I think you have to try to meet the middle.
Yeah. So then his main question, obviously, like, do you think there's a way to, like, basically, without putting objectives in, can you think of something that would
First Blood
replace fire? So
yeah, First Blood, something I can think of off the top of my head. Again, I'm going to pull from another game, but it's relatively you could do multiple different things. So again, I'm going to pull from Warhammer 40K. There used to be, and I think they still do, there are multiple different points that you can earn during the course of a game. One of them is First Blood, meaning I killed the first unit on the board and it's worth X number of points. If that led to MOV points or whatever, that would highly encourage aggressive opening salvos, being able to get into combat. The other one is slay the warlord. I don't know what you would call it. Like, kill the captain.
I have an interesting one that I think you might like mocking me for.
Ooh.
So, what I would do, and this is because I'm a horrible person who also happens to run events, so I would add extra time to a round until, like, so you do it like golden goal in football, in soccer. I don't know if there's like an equivalent in ice hockey or anything where like, the next goal scored is the winner. So the next ship that does damage wins. And you have infinite time to do this, but you're in a tournament, so 300 people are now stood around your table like, really? You sat in the corner. Yep.
It's the shaming or bullying.
It's a horrible way to actually decide it, but at some point, someone's going to fly that ship forwards and hope that they do damage first.
Yep.
And suddenly, it'll stop being an issue because no one's going to want to be that table that's got everyone else at the event stood around them.
Yep, I'm on board with that. I'm absolutely. I want to.
I don't know. I personally don't know if there's a true, fair, good, quality solution to this problem. I think they're doing the best that they can. Final salvo is just.
It's a fix to one problem that generates other, and every problem, every solution just generates more problems.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I said, that's why I had the hyperbole.
Circumstances.
Yeah. That's why I had the hyperbole of X-Wing being a terrible game. Because once you get into that minutia, it kind of breaks down. But...
Yes, yeah. It does. No, I mean, realistically it does, but, as a community, you overcome that.
Yeah. I still go by with my fundamental, like, the game should be played on the table.
Yeah.
Final salvo is not a way to end a game in mind. There are other ways you could do it. Like I said, I've offered two potential. We had this discussion at Worlds with our World show and where I would go with it. I recognize that we start getting into, infinite regression as far as what ifs, but at some point in time you need to have a cutoff. But I at least have the solution be played on the table and not, hey, let's just roll dice. And then at that point just flip a coin.
Yeah. So Harrison says, have you seen any lists from Worlds that really appeal to you? If so, have you tried them and have you made any changes to suit your preferences or playstyles? So you two haven't played any games, so have you found a list that you liked? It doesn't mean that
I wasn't intrigued by the list. Like all these lists really did intrigue me. What was the other list? Let me see if I can dig it up here.
So I will say, obviously, I stole that Kimagilla, and so I didn't take the full list, but I stole that Kimagilla build for the snapshot and like damage and bullseye thing, which was pretty. I thought it was neat. I didn't think it was going to like be overpowered or too cheesy, but I thought it was just a fun combo that I really wanted to stick on the table and try out. Other than that, I kind of stopped messing around with my Seer Swarm. So if I play a Seer Swarm, I will just lift one of the ones from Worlds. I suppose.
Does List Fortress have Worlds on it? I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's quite far back now. I can send you the link.
Okay.
Give me 1 second, everybody. I'm going to post this here.
While you're doing that, I want to jump back into the previous question real quick. So here's how I think that you could solve the problem is that if no points have been killed after 30 minutes, you shrink the field.
Oh yeah, no, I still like that idea.
You shrink the field, and after 60 minutes, you shrink it again. Till they're in a kill box. And then any ship that's outside the zone.
Aaron did that in Hunger Games, didn't he, at Nova?
He did. Yeah. Because that's exactly how he handled that problem.
We actually did it quite a bit in our league where we would have every so many minutes or every so many rounds, we would, strip tape off. And then that's how big the field was, and it would shrink down. And it forced you to actually play the game. It forced you to be dogfighters, and any ship that was outside that would take 2 damage. If they were outside of that for 2 turns, they were just completely destroyed, and your opponent got the points.
So I found the list that I was looking for, by the way.
I suppose I should credit Paul LaRue as well for he finished first in Swiss with the 3 Jedi list, which I've got Rick Olay in there, which is similar to the list that the guy who finished 40th, Ryan Moore. He made top 128 after day 2. Right, Obi-Wan, Paul, and Rick with R2s on them all. So I suppose it's an archetype that's already been around, so I didn't invent it, but I also didn't lift it from Worlds.
Mm-hmm. The one I was going for was the old dark side of the Force. I'll credit Kevin Lau for this one. That was Vader and 3 Inquisitors, all with Foresight. That list looked super intriguing to me. That's the one that I went, oh, really? Now that's interesting.
Joust me, fly forwards into my Inquisitor Foresight death.
That one looked really cool.
Yeah. Okay. Then we had Norin said, which ship from Wave 6, whenever that will be released, are you personally most looking forward to? And from a new player that didn't already have access to all of the ships that are coming out, like the Defender and the Interceptor and all of that, which ships do you think will have the biggest impact? So the new ships for us guys would be the First Order TIE Interceptor thing and the Fireball from the Resistance cartoon, and then there's the rehash of quite a few of the older ships.
All right, so I want to make sure I understand his question correctly. Is he coming at it from his perspective? Is he is a new player?
So from a new player perspective, if you don't have access to conversion kits and the old ships, so I'm going to pull up Wave 6.
Because if he doesn't actually physically own the ships, the conversion kits do him no good.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm.
And this is why I harp on hyperspace versus
I don't disagree.
Can we get into that 45-minute conversation again?
There's time. So we have the Reaper and the Interceptor and the Defender for Imperials. We have nothing for Republic. We have Source Renegades and the A-Wing for Rebels. We've got the Fireball for Resistance. Scum get the Hound's Tooth. And nothing for... so the 2 new factions get nothing, but you're getting 3 Empire ships being re-released. Defender, Interceptor. I think this is an easy one for me to just throw out there for quick agreement, but I imagine everyone having access to Soon TFL is going to be important.
Yeah, I would imagine so, especially if you didn't have that before. Since I do, the one that super excites me is that new TIE Interceptor for the First Order. Yeah. But simply because I feel like that poor faction needs so much help, I hope that ship's the one that does it.
That's the one I'm most excited for, but it's also the one I'm most apprehensive about. I can get that word out then. Major Von Reg's TIE, because I'm scared that it's just going to do nothing new that the faction doesn't already have. I want it to have a space, but it needs to compete with TIE SF with first Special Forces Gunner, the Silencer, so you be a 3 dice attack ship type thing, and so I'm very hopeful that it gives me something I don't already have at a price point that I don't already have. So
yeah, that's a good point. I want it just because it looks cool as hell, but it also excites me because I really feel like the First Order needs some help, and I'm hoping that ship is going to be the thing to help them get over the hump.
Yeah, I hope so. Then we have which one should I do next? Okay, so this one I thought was a really interesting question. So I don't know if you want to save it for maybe a secondary topic for next week. But
well, let's hear the question first.
So this is from Dave, and he says, what kind of adjustments are required, needed, / desired when moving from casual play to competitive play?
Oh. Wow.
I think way too many to unpack tonight.
Yeah, that is a main topic all in and of itself.
I'm gonna throw this out there. State of mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's a good way to answer it. Like, not leaving disappointed, but yeah, I definitely think that mindset is important. Like, starting to focus on, like, I need to know my triggers. I need to know what my opponent's list does before the game starts. That kind of stuff.
Right. There's a lot of pre-scouting. You have to play against the list that you think you're going to play against. You have to,
and you need to know what everything does. You can't be surprised.
Yeah.
Right.
And in fact, we're getting too deep in. I will not come back on that. I'll touch on it when we talk about it next time.
Yeah,
so
we'll make it. We've already got like the next 3 shows planned out just based on these questions.
Yeah.
The starting point, though, is state of mind.
Yeah,
that's where you have to start.
And
then, absolutely agree with that statement.
Final question is from a friend of the show, Zach Matthews. He says, what would Harambe think of the current meta?
Nothing, he's dead.
No.
That's so
hypothetical,
sad.
What would he think, you know? I'd think that he would drag it into a corner and then protectively hold it.
Until he's shot in the face.
Rip. Rest in pepperonis. F to pay respects to Harambe. So he did get a impromptu answer from Lack of Focus already. So Lack of Focus on Facebook said, he would think Ed needs to go to game night and play some games.
He would think that. Yeah. And he's a better man for it.
Yeah, because Chad may have responded to that for you.
Yeah, he may have done that.
Yeah,
he won't show up to record, but he'll show up to rip me on Facebook, of course.
That seems fine to me.
That's right on.
I feel like we get good value from Chad harassing you on Facebook under the guise of Lack of Focus. I'm more than happy with that.
I am way more than happy with that. I wish you were here, but circumstances are what they are. That'll get corrected.
As long as he's in for the next Christmas song recording.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God, we got to start planning that. We've only got like 2 shows in between now and then.
Okay, so I'll just rip off quickly all of the stuff I need to go through. So if you want to get in touch with the show, send us any questions, you can email the show at lackoffocuspodcast@gmail.com. So lackoffocuspodcast@gmail.com. It's our email address. You can find us on Facebook at Lack of Focus. We also have a Facebook group where you can come and be one of the lucky few people in there to actually enjoy our memes and just generally harass us all on Facebook. You can join the Dice 8 Discord. There'll be a link in show notes for that. You can also become a Patreon if you want a special banner on Discord and free stuff. I'm going to be posting out our Roger tokens. I've got a big bag of them, so they'll be going out this month. They've been seen in the wild because I was using them because I got mine immediately. It's the joys of actually paying for them.
Absolutely.
We do have a giveaway that I wanted to get done if Ed has a die handy.
Oh, does Ed have a die handy? Of course he does.
Oh, yeah. Where's it gone? I knew it was here somewhere.
How high do we got to go? Let's start off there.
Okay. So it's going to be a pile of the stress tokens and Paul LaRue, Han Solo scum card, and then some of the acrylic tokens that I have from doing decently well at events. Where's my page? I think I'm 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh,
he's counting.
So we need a D20.
In hand, ready to go.
Yeah, cool. Roll away, my friend.
Oh, it lean.
And members of Dice 8 and Lack of Focus podcast can win these, right, Kris?
It depends what number He says, so I need to accidentally try to reroll.
It's a critical. I rolled a 20.
Oh, all the way down to the bottom. So that is William Key.
Woo-hoo.
So close, Will. New Will almost won, but K
That does
comes
seem to
after
be the
G.
trend. As soon as you become a patron, you win something.
It almost won, but it was William Key. So I'll get that all sent off for you. Oh, get in. He's in the US. That's good.
Woohoo!
I don't have to ship stuff to Europe.
Yay!
Okay, so William, you'll get some extra stuff included with your Roger tokens. And we ask that obviously if you are going to become a patron, it does really help the show and help fund like the hosting for this and all the editing software subscription model that I absolutely adore. I definitely don't wish I could have just bought it outright. And like service the debt that Dice Hate ran up purchasing all of the equipment. But that's a different story. But
I don't know how I feel about that. Microsoft does it like it's dumb. I don't get it. Like, can I just buy it?
But we do ask that if you do want to support the show financially, make sure, because we charge per show, so make sure if you set yourself a realistic monthly total. 99% of our patrons give $1 because every little helps, and like we don't do massive amounts of stuff. We do as much as we can, and we love all you guys who do help and support us. It's a giant help, but please don't feel obliged to. Just enjoy the content and make sure you're sharing it around and talking about how awesome we are, about talking the first hour of the show without mentioning X-Wing.
We got really into it after that, though.
Yeah. I think that's it. Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow Ed. Do you want to? So my Instagram's Kris on Instagram. I post like pictures of my games and try and chat there. Discord's been a little bit more lively if people want to join that. Again, the Dice 8 Discord is the only thing I don't have permanently muted. So any comments I get immediately, and so I'm pretty responsive on that. And Ed, do you want to talk about your secondary YouTube channel? Definitely not primary. Your secondary.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got a primary and a secondary. So outside of this, obviously, I'm doing a lot of MTG Arena, Magic the Gathering Arena content. That's over there at Old Guy Gaming. I recently launched a sub-channel because I've fallen down a nostalgia pit. And I've started getting into old retro gaming. I ended up running out and buying myself an Atari 2600, and I've got about 40 games already. So I'm doing reviews and box openings and all kinds of fun stuff over that. So if you're interested in either one of those things, it's Old Guy Gaming and Old Guy Gaming Retro. Just go to the main channel, and that'll give you a shoot off to there if you're interested. Do appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. And thanks for all of that. I don't think I have anything else, so you want to do your normal stuff?
I was going to say, on that note, Sean, always good to talk to you, my friend.
Well, good to be here, and it was a great night, and I can't wait for the next show.
I know. I'm already I want to dive into that topic now, but we'll save it. Kris, always good to talk to you, my friend.
Oh, thanks a lot, Ed. It's good to be here.
All right, so that's going to do it for episode 38. Obviously, we've got topics upon topics for the next couple of weeks, so this should go be fun. So until that time, guys, fly casual. Thank you once again for joining the Lack of Focus X-Wing podcast. Check out Dice Hate Productions for all of the latest episodes, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you again next episode.